Hey now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on the sports voice of Kansas for the next 3 hours. Royals, Chiefs, KU, maybe another Power 5 conference falling apart at the seams. We will get to all that and so much more over the course of the next 3 hours here on 580 Sports Talk. Royals baseball coming up tonight. It almost certainly can't be worse than last night, although they did get 2 hits. Maybe they'll end up with none. Good God, man.
Maybe they'll get one before the 8th inning. But honestly, that wasn't the unpleasant part of the game. I mean, there are times where you got to tip your cap to the opposing starting pitcher, and last night was truly one of those. Michael Wacha had great stuff. He had a disappearing changeup. He had good command of everything he was throwing. That was a very well-pitched game, and there is an extent to which you got to tip your cap to the opposition. That was not the unpleasant part of last night's game.
Oh, are you possibly referring to the fact that like a wiffle ball with tape over a few of the holes would have been more accurate than some of Brad Keller's pitches?
Brad Keller went 3-0 on a batter 7 times in less than 4 innings.
We've got a lot of Brad Keller to get to. Because we're at a point where the Royals don't have any options, but they kind of need to find one because, like, you can't play that guy. You cannot walk 8 batters in not even 4 innings. Like, what was the number? 7 times?
7 times, 3-0 count.
Like, you can't have that. That's unplayable. So we're going to get to Keller here momentarily, just how bad that game last night was. The offense has been dreadful ever since that White Sox series in the 4 games since. And I was thinking about this last night. There's one reason in particular why the rebuild being in such a bad place this year is especially annoying, and it's how freaking bad the rest of the division is as well. So we'll get to a lot of Royals baseball coming up here in just a moment. Also this hour, we've got some Random Question Tuesday, and I came across a really stupid take from Bleacher Report about the Kansas City Chiefs. It's about Juwan Taylor, and I think it's very dumb. And we're going to talk about that later on this hour. We've actually got a lot of Chiefs to get to today. Bill Barnwell over at ESPN, he put together a list of post-NFL draft moves and potential signings for teams around the league. What does he think the Chiefs should take a look at doing? Also, he made a suggestion for the Packers.
I can't wait for your take. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about the that suggestion.
We'll talk about that in the 4 o'clock hour. Top of the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk some more NFL, some more Chiefs football. We've also got, of course, What Is Wrong With You today. I like my story a lot. My story went viral yesterday. I like it a whole bunch. We're going to get to that. The meth peanut butter. By the way, I got a text from your pal and mine, Larry Latimer, the coach, yesterday.
Yes.
Multiple laughing, crying emojis about the peanut butter meth story. That was a banger. So we'll get to What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain is going to stop by for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. A lot of KU stuff to get to. Some new names KU's looking at in the portal for basketball. Picked up a big portal commitment for football this week. Obviously, what's going on with Ernest Uday. All that's coming up with Michael Swain today. Plus, we'll get to headlines. We'll preview Royals Padres tonight. And you good over there? ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference. All of a sudden, it seems like there might be a mutiny going on in that league. And a handful, maybe half of the conference is just ready to tear it all down in a heartbeat. We'll get to what we know about that situation later on today. Of course, we will get to your texts, 785-272-9429. We will also get to your comments on YouTube. The name of our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. Head to youtube.com, search for Sports on 580. We will be the top result. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best place to find all of our video content. And we should also note, we have some Royals tickets to give away today. Today is a day of celebration. It is 1 year, the 1 year anniversary of the start of the newly formatted Sports Talk block on 580 WIBW. We rebranded everything as Sports on 580. We split up the 2 shows, noon to 3. Dan and I here from 3 to 6. It's been 1 full year of that now. It's been a lot of fun. It has been so much fun to have all you guys who've been listening and watching, well, watching for the last 6 months, but listening for so long, so many new listeners, new watchers, people who've been consuming all of our stuff. So it's been a lot of fun, and I think it'll be fun to celebrate a little bit and give away some Royals tickets today.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to thank the people that have been hanging out with us, whether you're new to the program or you've been with us from Jump Street, you've been with us from day one, which was, again, exactly a year ago today, May 16th of 2022 was when we rolled it out. We've been very happy to be with you for this past year. It's been a successful year. It's been a fun year. And we want to celebrate with you guys and hook some of you up with a free ball game. And we hope that we can hook you up if you're out there listening. So be listening for your cues to try and win.
And we'll be able to do that a handful of times throughout the show today. So be listening. We're going to have different ways that you can enter to win some Royals tickets. So be listening throughout the show today. Tragically, we have to start with last night's Royals game. Royals did not get a hit for the vast majority of the game into the 8th inning.
Yep, 7 no-hit innings for Michael Wacha before Michael Massey broke the spell with a leadoff single in the 8th.
Attaboy, Massey. Michael Massey. Who would have thought he'd be the one we were relying on to produce for the Royals?
Hey, he hit it on the nose, and I'm just glad that Bob Melvin gave Wacha a chance to try and finish the no-hitter.
Yeah, I agree.
Really disappointed. Even at 101 pitches, I know that they were certainly wary about overdriving him past a season high in pitches.
Mm-hmm.
And very few guys throw over 100 pitches in a game anymore anyway. But he was awesome last night.
Yeah.
I mean, we can complain, rend all the garments we want about the Royals offense after last night, but sometimes just get beat by a guy having a good night.
You do.
And I thought Michael Wacha was awesome last night. You know, when he's been at his best throughout his major league career, it has been because he's been consistently in the strike zone. He's had a really good changeup. Holy cow, he had a great changeup last night. And he's been able to beat you with the changeup and the breaking ball down in the zone and then elevate the fastball later in counts, get some swings and misses, which he got quite a few of last night. It was a outstandingly well-pitched game by Michael Wacha, and my hat is off to him. I have no complaints about the Royals' offense last night. I obviously wish it would have been better, but Michael Wacha was great. He was better than the Royals last night, and you tip your cap in a situation like that.
He did go into the game averaging 7.2 strikeouts per 9. He had 11 in 7 innings last night. You're right. It should be about how good Michael Wacha was. I do think it is worth at least bringing up before we get to Royals pitching, which is in an even worse spot. In 4 games since winning the series against the White Sox, 4 straight losses for the Royals. They have 10 runs in 4 games. That is 2.5 runs a game.
Yeah.
Including 6 in 1 contest. They've had 22 hits total in those 4 games. They have struck out 41 times, and they are 3 for 20 with runners in scoring position. That is a .150 batting average. They're striking out over 29% of the time. League average is 22%. I counted up the total plate appearances from the last 4 games. 141 plate appearances. 41 have been strikeouts. If you're making a bunch of outs, but you're putting the ball in play, that's one thing. When you're striking out, approaching a third of the time you come up, that is where I've got more of an issue.
And that's been a problem for certain guys in the lineup all year. We've talked about at times Bobby Witt Jr. struggles with that. MJ Melendez struggles with that. Nick Prado struggles with that. And they can certainly catch up with you. And, you know, going into this stretch, we had looked at the Royals season, almost divided it in half, right? For the first 40 games, we looked at the first 20 games and the 19 games after that. And the first 20 games, the Royals were really in a rough spell. The second 20 games, the Royals were a top 5 offense in the league, scoring 5.5 runs a game over that 19-game stretch. And since then, they've averaged 2.5 runs per game over this 4-game stretch. So, yeah, peaks and valleys for sure with this lineup. And it, honestly, again, it's the kind of thing you expect when you've got so many young guys who are hitting in important spots in the order. The one thing that may bear a longer discussion, and we're going to have to see how this plays out. You know, we're on today, then the Royals are going to preempt us tomorrow. So the next time we talk to you will be essentially 2 games from now. And I forget which Royals blog, might have been Royals Review, but I don't want, I saw it out there somewhere last night, and I kind of brushed up against it, I think, on yesterday's show. Don't think Bobby Witt Jr. is a leadoff hitter. I don't. I
Mhm.
love his speed. I love his pop. I don't think he's your table setter. I don't think that's a role that's really good for him. You want him to get at bats, but I don't think that's your leadoff hitter. I think they've got to come up with a different solution at the top of the order. It might be Pasquantino, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
He's got the best batting eye. He's going to have the best on-base percentage. I know he doesn't run very well. Certainly doesn't run as well as Bobby Witt Jr. And in theory, that's been the baseball philosophy forever. Get a fast guy lead off. He gets on base, then he can steal and get into scoring position for the thumpers in the lineup. Well, that's a nice thought, but when your leadoff hitters on base percentage in the 270s, 280s, you're short circuiting your offense. And maybe Bobby Witt Jr. is more comfortable in a different role in the lineup. I just think it's time to maybe start to have that conversation that maybe he needs to be moved down in the order for now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty apparent at this point. If for no other reason, I mean, try something new because he's struggling right now. Try something new. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't end up working. I don't know, but it's worth at least giving it a different shot. Putting Pasquantino there is something I would try as well. And again, you come back to the traditional logic, which is you want speedy guys on first, and then you want the powerful guys and the best hitters to knock them in. But sort of a new way of thinking, a newer way of thinking is whoever gets on base the most should be at the top of the order because they're going to hit the most. You might get 5 at-bat or 5 plate appearances in a game if you are a 1 or a 2 hitter. Less likely if you are further down in the order. So if Vinny's going to get on 40% of the time, well, yeah, you want him batting earlier on. I don't know if he would be the choice. I don't know if they would go in some other direction. Maybe it's Massey. I don't know what Quattrero wants to do. It's a whole new world still. I get that. But you might as well try something different while the offense is struggling the way it is. All right, let's just tear the Band-Aid off. Brad Keller walked 8 guys in less than 4 innings last night. He lasted 3 2/3 innings. And didn't give up a ton of runs. I mean, too many because the Royals got shut out. So any number of runs would have been too many. But he walked 8 dudes. And he has now, in 9 starts this year, 9 of them, 7 games, he has given up 4 or more walks. 7 of 9 starts, he has walked 4+ guys. He has been horrendous. He cannot throw strikes. It's impossible to watch. The worst kind of baseball to watch is when pitchers cannot throw strikes. It is worse than games where there's just like 35 hits and they're all singles. It is worse than games where the fielding is terrible. Games where the pitcher cannot hit the zone and cannot throw strikes. The worst kind of baseball to watch. Go watch 9-year-olds play Little League, okay? It's the worst you can see because no one can throw. That's not the kid's fault.
Yeah, balls in play. Action is what makes baseball. And there's very little room for action when you're walking guys at the rate that Brad Keller's walking guys. In 43 1/3 innings this year, Brad Keller's up to 40 walks.
You just can't have that, man.
That is over 8 walks per 9. There's only one regular starting pitcher for the Royals who's striking out more than 8 guys per 9. That's Brady Singer. Keller last night was unwatchable in a way that was almost uncomfortable. I hesitate, and I don't necessarily believe it to be the case here either, to ascribe problems like on a large scale, like the dreaded Steve Blass disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have seen pitchers afflicted with a sudden mental block that just keeps them from throwing strikes. It ended Steve Blass's career. It altered Rick Ankiel's career, ended his pitching career. Daniel Bard went from one of the best setup men in baseball to out of baseball for 6 calendar years. And it's happened on the lower levels too. Guys we've never heard of because they don't even get to the major leagues before they lose the ability to find the strike zone. I don't think that's what's happening with Brad Keller on quite that scale.
Mm-hmm.
But something is clearly off because he could not throw the baseball where he wanted to throw it last night. It is not as though he's missing the strike zone close. That would be one thing. These are not close misses. He is all over the place. He threw one that hit Manny Machado, actually forced Machado from the game. Hopefully he's all right. There was one that was over everybody's head, went to the backstop. That one scored a run, I believe. It was just unbearable last night to watch him pitch. He went to 3-0 counts on 7 different hitters. He got a couple of those guys out, which is remarkable. The Padres certainly did him some favors. Fernando Tatis Jr. ran into an out at home plate. Otherwise, I'm not sure he ever gets out of that inning. Like, I really don't. I really don't know if he gets out of the second inning if Fernando Tatis Jr. doesn't gift him, or maybe it might have been the third inning. Might have been the third. If he doesn't gift him a free out there. But having to watch a teammate do that, you're just standing around as a defense, as a baseball team. It is demoralizing. It is gutting to watch a guy go through that from a baseball perspective. This is before you get to the human side of, this is a guy who's been a successful major league pitcher, and right now he cannot throw a strike. It is very, very difficult to watch. And the solution is, look, you got to get him off the mound. Whether that's you invent an injury for him or you demote him to AAA Omaha and say, hey, maybe get away from, maybe take a week before you go pitch for the Storm Chasers. Maybe take a week to clear your head. Go sit in a duck blind or a pond or something. Clear your head. And that would be one thing if the Royals could then promote somebody who could credibly start a Major League Baseball game. And they're really short on those guys right now due to injuries and underperformance at the AAA level. There's just no one else. So this is what we're stuck with for now. But that was dire. That was as unpleasant and uncomfortable a viewing experience as I've had watching Royals baseball this year. And that's saying something because they're 12-31 and it hasn't been a lot of fun watching this baseball team. But that was painful. That was painful. And it's not like Brad Keller's trying to walk the ballpark.
No.
Like, being as charitable as I can to a guy who's out there who had to know going into this season after he got yanked from the rotation last year. Mm-hmm. He's in his last year before he hits free agency. This is a make or break year in a lot of ways for Brad Keller as a major league starting pitcher. And I can't imagine what it must feel like to be up on the mound and not be able to throw the ball where you want to throw it. It's one thing if it's a hitter, if that's an inning, if that's an outing. Yeah. We are 9 starts in, and he is walking 8 guys per 9. He has almost walked a batter for every inning he has pitched. And I think it goes to show that for all of the hope that we went into this season with, that a new coaching staff could be a quick fix, that it would be like sprinkling fairy dust on this collection of pitchers. Cal Eldred's out. Somebody with a clue is in. Somebody, a manager who comes from a organization that's been great at developing pitchers, a new pitching coach that comes from a different organization that's been tremendous at developing pitchers. You hoped it might be a quick fix. I don't know if maybe Keller's got 100 things rattling around in his head right now and can't land on 2 or 3 that will straighten him out. I don't know. And I don't want to speculate what's going on in his head, what he's thinking about when he's on the mound. That's not fair. And I don't believe this is irrevocable because, like, we've seen what it looks like when it is. Like, this is not Rick Ankiel throwing everything to the backstop in a playoff game. But right now, it's got to be hard for the Royals to feel like you got a chance when he takes the mound. And that's a hard place to be for a pitcher and for a team.
I mentioned this at the top, that one of the things about this year that is as annoying as can be, and again, knowing full well that the Royals were going to be bad this year, I don't think I realized how many people were not aware of that. I saw Royals Farm Report. I actually saw it because Fulton tweeted about it. Royals Farm Report on Twitter mentioned that, this team was never going to be good this year. We knew that they were still in tank mode. We knew that they were still in this mid-rebuild, indefinite rebuild kind of process, and calling out people for saying, well, I thought this was going to be better. I thought this was going to be better. I did not realize how many people actually thought this team was going to bring in a new manager and change JJ Piccolo's role and suddenly was going to be competitive. I was under no such assumptions. I knew they were going to be bad. But the problem with being this bad and this non-competitive in far too many games, the division sucks. It is awful. It is not good at all. Buster Olney at ESPN put together a column this week, kind of a musings column of things he's watching for as the trade deadline approaches. It is mid-May, and we're talking about something that's not going to happen for another 2.5 months. That's how bad the bottom of baseball is this year. Overall baseball product, really good so far this year. The bottom of baseball, horrendously bad. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. He had 3 consecutive bullet points about AL Central teams. They included, what is Cleveland going to do with Shane Bieber? Cleveland's not very good. Will the White Sox stave off their own rebuild because the division is so bad? They're going to just try to keep squeezing a tiny drop of juice out of that orange continuously. They're really bad. We know that. And do the Twins care more about winning now or later? Or in other words, should they actually get rid of good players to worry about the future, even though they're leading the division right now?
They look like they're going to trip and fall into a division title. They're the only team in the division over 500, 3 games up on Cleveland, who's 19-21, and cannot hit. Absolutely cannot hit a lick. That team is dreadful offensively. Then Detroit's in 3rd place all of a sudden. They got off to that wretched start, and they've actually played pretty fair baseball over the last month. And then you have the White Sox and the Royals, who have just been wretched. But yeah, isn't that even more frustrating to feel like, man, if the Royals had their ducks in a row,
they could be the ones tripping and falling into wins.
Right. Why couldn't they be in the hunt? Why couldn't they be interesting in the Central Division right now? Nobody else seems to want to take it.
No.
Minnesota's 23-19. They lead the division, but it almost feels like it's by default. Like Carlos Correa hasn't hit.
No, he's been bad.
They've had some injuries with their starting pitching. Tyler Mahle's out for the year.
Yeah, he's getting Tommy John. That's just, it's so irritating that, and not that they were going to be good, but you could have been in a spot potentially where you were at least going to, win 72 games and feel like, all right, yeah, this was a terrible division, but we got the benefits of playing a bad division. We got to win a little bit more. We got to see some more positive moments. Instead, this is just going to be an entire year of taking your lumps, apparently. Even the things that have been good this year, like Vinny Pasquantino, he's in the midst of that right now. We addressed that yesterday.
Yeah, he got a hit in the 9th. That snapped an 0 for 19.
Yeah, you haven't seen a lot of that.
But,
Vinny.
like, even great hitters go through those.
Right.
Like, and I think we've seen enough of Pasquantino to consider him at least a very good one. So, yeah, it doesn't make it any easier when you're trying to dig out of a losing streak and one of your best hitters is in a funk.
And it's just, it's the accumulation of all of this that, God, that is so bad. And while we knew it was bad, like, this is horrible. If they were just bad, they might be 3rd in the division right now, because it is just such a bad group of 5 at the moment. And unfortunately, the Royals are still in the basement of it. We'll talk more Royals baseball a little bit later on. I know we've been saying so many negative things, but nothing beats a day at the ballpark. We've got some tickets we're going to give away throughout the show, celebrating 1 year of the new or retooled or however you want to call it, 580 Sports Talk. Started 1 year ago today, so we're going to celebrate with some ticket giveaways later on in the show. Right now, we have to get to a commercial break. When we come back, we'll play a little Random Question Tuesday. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk.
Are you ready for
Time for Random Question Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Coming up later, we'll talk about something I saw regarding Juwan Taylor that I thought was very, very dumb. We'll get to that here in a minute. My random question for you, I've been sitting on this one for a little bit. What is one sports moment that you just can't, like a bad sports memory that you just cannot get over? Like I'm always going to think about this. I will never be rid of this thing that haunts me in the sports world.
Well, I'm a Seahawks fan, so.
Okay. Well, that probably answers it then.
There's one very obvious answer
that's true.
That question. But I mean, I could go through them with all the teams I root for. Anthony Carter's bad inbounds pass in game 1 of the Western Conference Finals in 2009. Adam Deadmarsh hitting the post at Reunion Arena on that Slurpee they called ice. It bounced the puck the wrong way and hit the post in the dying seconds of game 7 of the Western Conference Finals in 2000. Or Jim Tracy leaving Houston Street in to face Ryan Howard in game 4 of the National League Division Series instead of going to his lefty, Joe Beimel, to try and preserve the lead and send that series to a game 5. Like, yeah, I got a lot of them. I got there's a lot of scar tissue there. That's probably the one, honestly, other than obviously not giving the ball to Marshawn, that stings the most, because I firmly believe that if the Rockies had beaten the Phillies in 2009 in the division series, they would have gone to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had been able to get Jorge De La Rosa back healthy, they might have won the whole thing. They were awesome for the final 100 games of that season. They were the best team in the National League, and they're up at the tail end of game 4, and the tying run is on for Ryan Howard with 2 outs in the 9th. And of course, manager, that's orthodox baseball thinking. Got to stay with your closer no matter what. Nah, man, you had a lefty to go wipe out Ryan Howard. Go wipe out Ryan Howard, win the game. And Howard doubled, and then everybody was so shell-shocked that Jason Worth singled in Howard on the very next pitch and to take the lead, and that was the ball game. That was it.
The one that doesn't really, it counts because I think about it probably weekly. KU wins national championship in 2020. And everybody was robbed of that, so it doesn't really fit. Because as many times as I've said Kansas was going to win that national title, Baylor fans have also said that. So have Dayton fans. So have San Diego State fans. So have Michigan State fans. There's 8 different fan bases that all think they were going to win. Now, one team was legitimately the best team in the country, but we were all robbed of that one, as much as it pains me. So the two that probably are the worst, it's the 2014 NFC Championship game. We don't have to relive that one.
I know what you're talking about. I enjoyed that game very much.
I'm sure you did. Well, I'm sure for the final half hour you did anyway.
Yeah,
maybe not the first 2.5.
Yeah, final half hour in real time.
Yeah. The other one, and people will point to various different KU basketball losses over time. The one that is the worst to me is the 2016 tournament in the Elite 8 against Villanova. The easy one to point to is the Final Four game against Villanova because KU just got smacked. But Villanova in 2018, that's one of the best national championship winning teams we've had in a long time. They were beating anybody those 2 nights down in San Antonio. Sometimes you just get beat. We're talking about Michael Walker last night was just that good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just play a better team and they go nuts and they beat you. That happens. And that happened to KU that night. That was sad, but it wasn't, oh my God, I'm having my heart ripped out. 2016 Louisville Elite 8. Villanova got the benefit of and some people will just tell you this is karma because, Allen Fieldhouse, but the benefit of the worst KU whistle I've ever seen in my life. And Devontae Graham fouling out of a game in which he committed maybe 2 legitimate fouls. And Villanova ends up winning, I think it was 63-55. Perry Ellis was bad in that game. Wayne Selden was bad in that game. Everybody was bad in that game pretty much except Frank. That one hurts because KU had the better team than Villanova and just scored 55 points in an Elite 8 game. Yeah. That one stings.
A couple of Chiefs-oriented answers on the in the YouTube comments for that question. Mark in with the Lynn Elliott game in 1993, and Christopher in with the 2021 AFC Championship game, just the entire second half and overtime.
I saw a similar topic come up the other day on Twitter, and a friend of mine who's a huge Chiefs fan said that Chiefs game. and against the Bengals. And I saw a bunch of other people reply to him and say, dude, are you like 8 years old? Like, do you not remember decades of Chiefs misery and playoff collapses? You know, Andrew Luck, Lynn Elliott, Darrelle Revis smacking a pass back to Marcus Mariota.
The no punt game.
Yeah.
The Eric Fisher's holding call against the Steelers that was not holding.
And his rationale was, yeah, but that's what the Chiefs were. Like, the Chiefs were the better team than the Bengals. And they have the guy, and they could have won the Super Bowl, and then they didn't.
That's fair. It hurts more when you're like the favorite. Like, you're the plucky underdog and you lose, you know, there's only but so much what if. Like, hey, you know, this might have happened anyway. But also a texter from the 785 in with the Big 12 championship game between K-State and Texas A&M.
Oh, yeah.
Which, yeah. Like,
yeah, if you're old enough to remember that game, I don't know how you could ever pick something else.
It is a fascinating what if. What happens if Kansas State wins the national championship that year? Like, it's a fascinating historical what if. What does that do for Kansas State athletics? Do they just hit the stratosphere from there? Like, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't benefited from a first-time national championship? Like, think of the other programs in that era that won one. Think of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the SEC is different, but maybe it is. Maybe it's even a little different for the Big 12 if K-State wins another wins a national championship in there. That is a good what if. And K-State fans, I'm sure a lot of you share that same one.
You are certainly welcome to weigh in on the text line, 785-272-9429, or on the YouTube comments. Somebody also in from the 785 with the unsportsmanlike conduct call at the end of the Pinstripe Bowl between K-State and Syracuse. Little lower stakes, but certainly a deeply annoying.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The stakes much lower, but still not not a way that you want to see that come to an end. My question today: Who is your favorite active athlete who does not play for one of your favorite teams? And for you, you cannot answer Aaron Rodgers to this question.
Okay, so I was actually going to clarify. Does it have to be someone who's never played for my favorite team?
Yes.
Okay.
Somebody who has never played for your favorite team.
Because if I can't say Aaron Rodgers, then my answer is Devontae Adams. So never played for my favorite team. This is... I can't count Jimmy Butler, even though really I kind of hate the Bulls. Might be him. Man, this is a really good... probably Mike Trout.
Mike Trout?
I think I would go with Mike Trout. I was on the Trout bandwagon very early on, and I was one of the nerds, like, too nerdy for my own good, be like, well, actually, the Triple Crown isn't that impressive. Have you seen Mike Trout's wins above replacement? That was me, and I will admit to that, circa 2013 or whatever year that was.
And I was on that, too.
But I would probably go with him. He's been so good for so long, and he's not slowing down. I'd go with Trout.
I was thinking about that last night because Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a home run for the Braves. Acuna is coming off of 2022 where he was still an all-star, but he wasn't quite what he was before he ripped up his knee there midway through the 2021 season. Like, it was obvious that he didn't have like quite as much juice. He's got the juice back, folks. His OPS leads all of baseball, 1.024. He's got 17 stolen bases, 9 home runs. He's hitting 344. But more than that, everything Ronald Acuna Jr. does is cool.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of the coolest baseball players I can remember in my entire life. That's a topic for another day, just cool athletes. But like, when you watch Acuna Jr. hit a home run, like, he doesn't hit any cheapies. It feels like they're all 470-foot majestic moon shots that he gets to come slow out of the box with. He does the I'm cold, like, ooh, I'm freezing a little bit with his arms before he comes out of the batter's box. Nah, Ronald Acuna Jr. is so cool. I think he's my favorite. He's my favorite baseball player. Like, even if you let me count players on my favorite team, I think Ronald Acuna Jr. right now is still my guy. It's my favorite player to watch right now.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's awesome to watch. Another one also from baseball, no basketball. Like, I don't know. Rooting for the NBA is so weird to me. Like, Joel probably doesn't count. I like Joel Embiid, but he went to KU.
Yeah, he played for your alma mater.
I think I'd probably pick Steph if I was going to pick an NBA player. Like, I know why the Warriors annoy people. I really get it. But when he is on, it is just special.
Fun to watch. I don't hate him, but I can't say I like him either.
That's fair. That's fair enough.
I'm not a Steph hater. Like, I'm not a LeBron hater either. For the next 2 weeks, I am.
Well, that's fair. The other one I was thinking of, though, another baseball player, another LA guy. I love Clayton Kershaw. Always have. Been a Kershaw fan for a long time.
I'm a fan of his too. I've always really left-hander, and he wears the number that I used to wear when I played ball, number 22. So there's a connection there. But I've always really liked him. I think he's about the right things, and he's been really magnificent. Why he no-hit the Rockies, and I wasn't even mad about it. Like, it's one of the great. Like, I stayed up till 1 a.m. to watch it. It was one of the best pitching performances I've ever seen. Interesting answer here from the 785 on the text line. Hot take in this area, but I love Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. I ride or die for Pat Mahomes, but both those guys are dudes. It's a privilege to watch him sling it.
Yeah, Burrow is probably on that list too. He's the only active NFL player who a non-Packer that I have a jersey of. I do love Burrow. The cool thing about those three too is they're likable dudes. Like, other than the fact that they're awesome at football, they're very likable dudes. Who's the least likable of that trio?
It depends on your
where you
perspective. Yeah, it depends on what you like, what you don't like, what you value, what you don't value. Maybe you're not keen on Burrow's confidence that can exude cockiness at times. Maybe you just don't like the way Patrick Mahomes sounds when he talks. Maybe you've got a least favorite of those. I would say Mahomes. I covered the Chiefs. I'm a little too close to that situation, but I do love watching Patrick Mahomes. Like, Mahomes brought me back to the NFL in a way. Like, I was kind of losing some interest in watching it on a regular basis. I just was dissatisfied. I thought the product wasn't very good. And I did week 1 of his first season. I've told this story before, I'm sure. But week 1 of Mahomes, so it was 2018 season. Mahomes' first start. Where am I? I'm on the golf course. I went golfing that day. I didn't watch a single, I might have played 27 holes. I didn't watch a single snap of the NFL that day. Like, I was that out, that disinterested. Like, it just didn't, I wasn't really feeling it. And I get home and I look at my phone. I said, this dude threw how many touchdowns? And then I saw the touchdowns and I said, I think I need to watch this dude throw some touchdowns. And then he went out and threw more touchdowns.
Yep.
Six of them things in week 2. And I said, and then week 3 was the San Francisco game where he made that ridiculous touchdown pass to Chris Conley. And it was like, oh, I'm watching something I don't know that I've ever seen before.
Dude is different.
Yeah.
Just different.
Change the game. Yeah.
We've got to get to a quick break. We'll talk some Chiefs football next on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Cheska with your money now.
2:48 on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Thank you so much for swinging by on this Tuesday afternoon. Got some Royals tickets to give away, so keep listening multiple times throughout the show. Listen to the whole show, but a couple of different times we'll have some Royals tickets to give away. I did want to get to this before the end of the hour. I found this last night from Bleacher Report, and their writer Alex Ballantyne, don't believe any relation to Corey Ballantyne, came up with the ranking of the 7 worst decisions of the NFL offseason. And I thought instantly, I bet this is a little hot takey, and it is. But that doesn't defeat my point here and how dumb the Chiefs' take on the list is. Number 1 is the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you think he's still a great quarterback and he's going to get you to the postseason, well, that was a good move. Number 2, the Panthers trading DJ Moore when they moved up to get the number 1 pick. Well, if you want to get something, you usually have to give something up. So what? Okay. Number 3, the Texans trading up for Will Anderson. Yeah, they had to give up a future first, but if he's a superstar, you ended up getting a superstar that's worth a first-round pick. Number 4, the Broncos overpaid offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. Mike McGlinchey ain't all that great.
Yeah, they it felt like they bid against themselves for his services.
The other thing, though, about the Broncos is they have a roster with a bunch of holes. They got a lot to figure out. Is Russell Wilson going to bounce back? Multiple pieces of that offensive line need to be addressed. Their wide receiver core. Is anyone really all that good on it? Is Jerry Jeudy a real number 1? Et cetera, et cetera. A lot of questions to ask there. Their defense, good, getting older. Number 5 on the list is where we get to the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs overpay offensive tackle Jawan Taylor. I think that's a very dumb take, and here's the reason why. Look at the 2 teams that just played in the Super Bowl. That included the Kansas City Chiefs, by the way, the Chiefs and the Eagles. The Chiefs and Eagles both built their teams from front to back. What do I mean by that? Taking out the quarterback here, because you know you need the quarterback. You have to have the quarterback to win. But both these teams built their offense and defense from front to back. That means building from the line of scrimmage to the back end of that position group. And defense, that is building your defensive line and your pass rush first, then to the linebacking core, then to the back with your secondary defense backs. You can flip those last 2, but essentially build on the line first, then build the rest. Offensively, build up the offensive line first, then build up the rest. Look at how the Chiefs have found success in the last couple of years, including this run to the Super Bowl, building front to back. Travis Kelce is a unicorn. He's a Hall of Famer at tight end, and he's been with the team for a while. He's been there longer than any of these offensive linemen. But look at who the running backs were. He had a 7th rounder, a journeyman running back who's 5'9" and 180 pounds in Jerick McKinnon, and a failed first-round pick who wasn't even active. Was Clyde active for the Super Bowl? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think he was.
He didn't make an impact.
He was on the 53. He had been, I don't know if he was active.
Yeah, it tells you what he did in Super Bowl 57. The wide receiver core. I mean, Juju's a nice player. MVS is a nice player, but that's not building your roster with those dudes. The tight ends outside of Kelce, yeah, they have a role, but they weren't anything special. That offensive line, though, that was special. That was either the first or second best offensive line in football. You put money, you put capital, you put time into the coaching of that group to build up a unit to make sure that your all-world quarterback doesn't get knocked down. And by the way, who had either the first or second best offensive line in tandem with the Chiefs? It was the team on the other side of the Super Bowl. That was the Eagles, who have a more run-heavy scheme than the Chiefs do, a little more play action in their offense, but they still had a great offensive line that was built to protect their quarterback both in drop back and designed running situations, and with their, again, more intensive wide zone running game. Their wide receivers, good. They moved picks to go get A.J. Brown. They drafted Devonta Smith. That was really good, but it all starts with their offensive line. And another better example, maybe to illustrate that for the Eagles, their running backs, their best running back, they were willing to not even make an offer to this offseason. They said, yeah, Miles Sanders, best of luck, thanks. Like, they keep bringing back Boston Scott, who probably only plays for one team. Like, if Boston Scott got cut this offseason, I don't know who else signs him. He's smaller than Darren Sproles and slower. Like, that's what he is. And that was a key contributor for the Eagles. It's about the game up front. Same on the defensive line, even though we're talking about the offense right here. You overpay for everyone in free agency. Everything is an overpay in free agency.
That's the way free agency works. You're being paid for what you've already done more so than what you're going to do. That's more acute in other sports, but it's also true in football.
So knowing that you are already going to pay at least slightly above market value, and knowing you have a position of major need, offensive starting tackle, that you need to fill, what is wrong with going out and getting arguably the best tackle on the market? And part of the argument here is that, well, they let Orlando Brown walk away and he got a cheaper deal. Yeah, why do you think he got a cheaper deal from a team with a worse offensive line? That's some important context here, Bleacher Report. That's Cincinnati would take anyone. And they gave less money to Orlando Brown than what the Chiefs had to give to Juwan Taylor. I don't think this is a smart take at all.
Shouldn't that tell you how the market viewed both of those teams?
Yeah, absolutely should.
It's not like the Chiefs turned around and took the money they were probably going to be willing to give Orlando Brown and gave it to Juwan Taylor. It's a very different looking deal than everything we heard about what a deal for Orlando Brown Jr. was going to look like from the Chiefs. No, they assessed the market. They paid him what the market would bear, and Orlando Brown Jr. is making less at, according to this guy, a more important position.
We were talking earlier about the classical logic of building a batting order in baseball. Fast guys first. Then a couple spots after that, you get the power guys, the drive-in run guys. Now we're more understanding, well, the guy who's batting first is going to get the most chances, so we should put guys who get on base the most in that spot. Football, left tackle is more important than right tackle is becoming less and less in vogue. That is less and less how teams are viewing things. You just need to have good tackles, or at least one great tackle. Left, right, doesn't really matter. Just get that player. That's what the Chiefs did with Juwan Taylor. The salary cap's going to keep going up. 2 years from now, this contract isn't going to look all that bad as long as Taylor, who's only 25 years old, is going to continue to play at the level he played in Jacksonville. I disagree completely that this was not even that this was a bad move, that this is one of the worst moves of the offseason. Give me a break.
Yeah, it's a stretch.
We are going to talk some more Chiefs football to lead off the 4 o'clock hour of the show. Should they go add some more pass rush help? We'll ask that question next on 580 Sports Talk.
Listen to this
Hey now, second hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you for stopping by and spending some of your afternoon hours with us. We've got Royals baseball coming up tonight on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 8 o'clock pregame, 8:40 first pitch for the Royals and Padres game 2. Maybe they'll score tonight. Maybe they will not walk 8 batters in the first 4 innings.
Not accept either of those as decent outcomes.
Yeah, either one would be an improvement over last night. Your pitching matchup for tonight, by the by, it'll be Brady Singer versus Seth Lugo. No relation to Julio. We'll preview that game coming up a little bit later on in the show today. This hour, we're going to talk a little Chiefs football and some potential additions they might want to seek out here as we hit the third wave of free agency. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You, and Michael Swain is going to stop by on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly. A lot going on in the KU world this week. We also want to celebrate a little bit. It's been 1 year of the new 580 Sports Talk. It's not really the new one anymore. It's been a whole year. We wanted to celebrate. As we told you earlier, we've got some Royals tickets to give away over the course of the show. So we're going to have you take advantage of our text line, which is always wide open and free to you, 785-272-9429. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets to give away, and we're going to give them away via the text line. Here's what we're going to do. During the course of this segment, so between right now and when we go to our next commercial break, text in with your full name. We're not going to tell anyone what it is, but we are going to see it, and we will see your phone number. That's the information we need.
First and last is fine. We don't need the government.
Yeah, that's all we need. First and last name, text it to 785-272-9429. We will pick.
Please, only one text per phone number.
Yes, we will see your phone number. We have had some of you scoundrels before maybe put in 2 or 3 different names. We have the phone numbers. We do have caller ID. We are in the 21st century. So text us with your full name, first and last. We'll have 2 sets of tickets to give away. We're going to pick 2 winners at random at the next commercial break. So text in the next 20-ish, 18, 20 minutes. You will be entered in to win a family 4-pack of Royals tickets. Again, text line number 785-272-9429. We would love to send you and your family, your friends, maybe 3 random strangers. We'd love to send you to a Royals upcoming home game at the K. 785-272-9429. 2 pairs of family 4-packs are up for grabs, 1 per person. We're not giving away 8 tickets to 1 person, sorry. But enter in during the course of this next segment when we will flip to the other side of the Truman Sports Complex and talk a little Kansas City Chiefs of football. Dan, you saw this from Bill Barnwell over at ESPN.com today, predicting post-NFL draft moves. That's potential signings, potential trades, et cetera, et cetera. And he's actually got the Kansas City Chiefs on here. We've talked at length, including yesterday, about how the Chiefs have pretty much set their roster. I mean, Matt Derrick has told us the same thing, that he assumes about now somewhere in the neighborhood of 48 to 50 of the 53 spots on the active roster are spoken for, with training camp still to come and maybe a surprise move here in the rest of the offseason. Well, Bill Barnwell writes this: the defensive line could still use a bit of work. The Chiefs moved on from Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap after the Super Bowl. Both are still on the free agent market, but the Chiefs have gone in other directions. Veach signed Charles Omenihu away from the 49ers and used a first-round pick on Felix Anudike-Uzomah, which gives the Chiefs another first-round pick in their edge rotation. But in an AFC full of devastating quarterbacks, I still think the Chiefs could stand to add another pass rusher. Names on that list include Leonard Floyd, former first-round pick, Justin Houston, wouldn't that be something, Jadeveon Clowney, and Yannick Ngakoue. That is the list of 4 that Barnwell brings up. There's a couple other names out there. He points out, too, the flaws for all of them. Floyd, at his best, was with the Rams when he played right next to Aaron Donald. If you can't play well next to Aaron Donald, you're just not a very good NFL player. And a lot of guys have been paid in that role. Remember Dante Fowler, bust of a first-round pick, goes to the Rams, looks great for a half a season, then got another contract after that. You should look good when you're playing next to the best defensive player in the NFL. I have a hard time seeing Justin Houston coming back to the Chiefs. I think he would be good. I think he'd be good in a rotational pass rusher role. But if I remember correctly, there was some bad blood when he got cut to get under the cap in 2019.
Yeah, he was a cap casualty, and I do think that was a little bit of a raw way to leave. Although at the same time, now that this is a championship-winning franchise, maybe he'd like to bring his career full circle and close out as a Chief. Though I always felt that he was at his best as a outside linebacker more so than a hand in the dirt defensive end.
Agreed.
I don't think schematically that's necessarily a great fit. So I don't know how likely it is from that perspective, but I'm sure there are still some Justin Houston fans out there who might like to see dust off the old number 50 jerseys if he were to return to Arrowhead as a Chief. Chris Jones continues to tweet about bringing Frank Clark back.
Yeah, he does.
Like every day.
Apparently those two are even better friends than I thought they were.
I mean, it's like the mayor and vice mayor of Sac Nation. Or true. Whatever, like the king and the prince, or the principal and the vice principal, like however you want to put it. He keeps pushing that. And I don't think Chris Jones would do that if he didn't think that there was some possibility. It's just hard to imagine. Like, they already asked Frank Clark take a pay cut last year. I can't imagine he'll take another one unless there's just no market for him at all. And that would surprise me if there were no market for Frank Clark.
I agree.
It sort of feels like his asking price might be a little bit too high and teams are staying away from him because they figure he'll have more realistic demands because he wants to get on the field, because I think his playoff run showed.
Yeah.
He got some good football left, and he can help you in January. He is we in basketball, we talk about like 82 game players, regular season guys, and then 16 game players, guys who can help you win the 16 you need to win a championship in basketball. I don't know that there's a similar distinction between 17 game players and 3 or 4 game players in the NFL. But if there were, like, Frank Clark's a 4-game player. Frank Clark is a January guy. That is where he has always been at his best. And I would have to believe that there is a contender or a team that fancies themselves a contender that would make a move for him. And I'm a little surprised that market hasn't materialized yet. I suspect that it will. I just have a hard time thinking Clark's going to take 2 pay cuts from the same team in consecutive years, including one as dramatic as, I mean, he was going to make $21 million this year. They're going to bring him back on a $5 million deal? I don't think so. Like, if he's going to swallow that, I would imagine it would be from somebody else.
So looking at the 1-year contracts that have been handed out to edge rushers this offseason, the highest paid one was Marcus Davenport. He went to Minnesota for $13 million. That is a lot of money for a player who I still kind of think is a lottery ticket, who goes long stretches where he just disappears. Next highest 1 year, $7 million for Calais Campbell. That's a lot for Calais Campbell, who's going to turn 37 next season. And he's been a really good player for a long time. After that, Ashawn Robinson, who you could even kick inside as a 3-4 end, he got $5 million, and then nobody else is more than $3 million. Bud Dupree, Jordan Phillips, who returned to Buffalo, Dante Fowler, they all got $3 million. Everyone else less than that.
I mean, notably, those last 3 names you mentioned were pass rushers, edge rushers.
Yeah, like true off the edge guys. I mean, if Frank Clark is asking for more than that, I mean, go get paid. I'm not going to, say bad things about you for that reason. But if he was looking at that kind of number, like, hey, this is what guys, what's the difference right now between Bud Dupree and Frank Clark?
Injury history, probably.
Probably. I mean, they're about the same age. They're right around 30. They've had similar regular season production over time. Frank Clark's best season. Oh, yeah. And Dupree had that one really good year before he left Pittsburgh as well. So, I mean, like, Frank, if you're willing to take $3 million for 1 year, I think that would make sense for the Chiefs. I think that would, in fact, make a lot of sense for the Chiefs. But maybe he wants to go higher than that. Barnwell notes there's 2 other names here that we didn't get to in their potential foibles here. Yannick Ngakoue is going to be the most expensive. I like Ngakoue. I think he's been a really good player for a long time. Really a secondary option. I don't know if you want him to be your best pass rusher, but as a rotational guy or, starting in certain spots, I think he's a fine player. He's probably going to be the priciest of any of these guys still available.
And that's what Barnwell says, too, that he figures Ngakoue would be the most expensive. He's never had fewer than 8 sacks in a season in his career.
That's crazy.
He's never had more than 12 and a half, but that's remarkable consistency. And the other thing that Barnwell points out about Ngakoue is that he has played for 5 teams in the last 4 seasons.
It's weird, right? Like, you'd think he would stick a little bit more. And I know he was just kind of bouncing around trying to follow Gus Bradley for a while, but it's kind of weird that no one wants to sign him long-term. And I don't exactly know why. I don't know if there is a good reason why.
Yeah, 9.5 sacks last season. He's going to he just turned 28 in March. Like, it's still a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him settling for 1 year, $3 million. And you're not taking
No.
a Bud Dupree deal. I think somebody's going to go out and they're going to get him. Clowney to me is fascinating because the good for Clowney can be so good. When you notice him, he's wrecking a game. What about the other 15 games in a season?
My stance on Jadeveon Clowney is just sign Frank Clark. They're the same player. Like, Clowney's splashes are probably better than Clark's, but, and this is going to sound insane, Clark's probably a more consistent player, but they're the same guy. Do you know how many 10-sack seasons Jadeveon Clowney's had in his career?
I'm going to say 0.
0. Jadeveon Clowney, of all players we've talked about as a star for a long time, well, at least used to, 1 year in 2017 with Houston, had 9.5 sacks. That was probably his best year, although the year before, when he only had 6, he was a second-team All-Pro. That's kind of weird. But he had 9.5 sacks in 2017, 9 in 2018, and then 9 in 2021. He's never had a 10-sack season. He's really good against the run. Like, really good at defending the run. He's Frank Clark. If you're going to sign one, might as well just sign the guy you've already had and just sign Clark. That's my stance on Jadeveon Clowney, because he, again, probably asking for a bit because he always asks for a lot of money, which, again, fine. You'll get paid. You only have so long to play. He also has left at least 2, if not more, of the teams he's played for under very acrimonious circumstances. Had a very ugly departure from Cleveland this year. And I don't think things ended particularly well, although maybe not terribly, from Houston. I don't know exactly what it was like in Seattle, and I don't think Tennessee Titans fans have a very high opinion of their former edge rusher either. Like, he burns bridges and also doesn't generate the kind of pressure you would think that he does. I'd rather just have Frank Clark at that point.
Yeah, the other thing you have to factor in if you're bringing somebody into your locker room is their presence in that locker room. You don't want to disrupt what has been a good culture, a good locker room, a focused locker room, focused on the main thing, which is winning a championship, more so than focused on the money, focused on the next contract, focused on the individual numbers, the individual accolades. Like, the culture of the Chiefs is really good. And you wouldn't want to bring in a guy that would be poisonous to that. That being said, when was the last time Jadeveon Clowney was on a team that was any good? Like, it's been a few years since, was he toxic because he left the Browns in an acrimonious fashion, or is that just the Browns?
It could just be the Browns. That's certainly possible.
Is Yannick Ngakoue the problem because he's played for 5 teams in 4 years, or are the teams he's been playing for, which have been by and large bummy and dysfunctional, are they the problem?
By the way, Clowney has played in his career 5 postseason games, none since 2019 with Seattle. He went twice when he was in Houston. And that time he was with Seattle, I believe one of those games is when he almost murdered Carson Wentz. Was it Carson Wentz? No. Who was it?
Well,
it's against the Eagles, right?
Yeah. Well, Wentz got hurt.
Yeah.
McCown. It was Josh McCown. Yeah, it was Josh McCown.
Yeah. He maybe a little over aggressive with a hit.
Yes.
Eagles fans. He never played for them, but they don't really like Jadeveon Clowney all that much either.
So it's an interesting list of guys, right? Like varying degrees of impact.
You could talk yourself into or out of any of them.
Right. And if you're looking to add to the position group's depth, which I think if there's one bit of orthodoxy that is generally accepted when it comes to building an NFL roster, it's the more guys you have that can get to the quarterback, the better. Particularly when you have Patrick Mahomes and you are trying to make sure that the other guy, whether that's Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Trevor Lawrence or who Aaron Rodgers or Tua, whoever it ends up being, doesn't have as many opportunities to outscore you. Well, how do you take those opportunities away? Splash plays, sacks, tackles for loss. And edge guys are the ones who deliver those. Last year, the Chiefs were really short going into the season, really short at that position. They gave Carlos Dunlap $8 million. I think they got fair return on investment. Like he only had, I think it was 4 sacks last year, but I thought that was pretty fair return on investment for Carlos Dunlap. Rotational guy. He had some big plays. He was impactful deflecting passes. He played the run well enough as DE number 3, a guy that allowed them to bring along George Karlaftis a little slower. I think he was valuable.
Good vet presence.
And if the Chiefs are looking at their edge rushers this year and saying, hey, we'd love to add one more veteran to this group to help Felix Anudike-Uzomah develop, to continue to assist in the development of Karlaftis in year 2, I would understand that. And I think there's a certain amount of sense that makes. Honestly, it feels like the best fit when you talk about culture, when you talk about, maybe willing to, humble thyself, accept a diminished role, accept a diminished contract, and be a good presence, be a leader in that locker room. It is Frank Clark if he's willing to take that pay cut. I just can't imagine he would be. And I don't think it's fair to ask him to do it again unless that's something he's really dying to do is, not have to fill out a change of address form.
It's an interesting spot to be in. There was an argument on Twitter among the analytical community a while back about throwing numbers at a position and seeing if it will work. And in fact, it's centered around the Chiefs and cornerback specifically. There was an argument about, is Trent McDuffie actually good? Was it actually a smart move to trade up and get him? My belief is yes. I'm in the camp that if you feel like this guy is going to help, go move up and get him. But a lot of the, I'm not necessarily going to watch the game, but I will watch my live updating spreadsheet. They're like, no. You never trade up because you don't ever get good value. And the argument was, well, should you just get as many players of whatever caliber as possible, throw them at the position and hope it works? Or do you want to specifically target certain people and then make it work that way? And obviously there's multiple ways to skin a cat. I think when it comes to rushing the passer, you kind of have to do both. Like, you want to have top end guys. Like, I like Mike Dana as a reserve pass rusher. I think he's good for 4 or 5 sacks a year. He can play a decent number of snaps. You bring him in on special teams. He can start in a pinch if you need him to. That's a fine depth piece to have on a team. I don't want an entire team with 4 Mike Danas on it. But you need to have some of those guys. Throw the numbers at it. Carlos Dunlap kind of in that same mold. I don't have a problem with going out and getting someone else, whether it probably won't be Ngakoue because he's going to cost a lot of money, but any of those names that we mentioned, I would be happy to bring any of those in because if nothing else, keep dudes fresh. That's 10 fewer snaps a game that Karlaftis has to play going into January. 10 snaps less a game that Omenihu has to play going into January, whatever it might end up being.
Well, a team that worked really well for last year was Philadelphia, where they made some in-season additions with Ndamukong Suh and with Linval Joseph, but they had so many guys that they could rotate, particularly in the middle of their defensive line, more so the middle for them than the outside. But they had 9 playable guys, 9 guys you had to account for, 9 guys who could make a play, not just, space eaters or, guys to take a snap here and there. They had 8 or 9 pretty impactful guys in their rotation, and they rode that all the way to the Super Bowl.
I want to address real quick. Bill Barnwell also has the Packers signing Carson Wentz in here.
Yeah, he does.
Packers need a backup quarterback. Well, they drafted Sean Clifford. That was weird. They've still got Danny Etling. He's been lingering around since his LSU days. And the Packers could probably use a veteran. It's always good to have a veteran when you've got a young quarterback. Carson Wentz sucks. He's not good. And I don't think teammates like him all that much. Although we heard some different stories about that from his time in Washington. Sam Howell said when he made his first start at the end of last season, Wentz actually, he got a suite in his deal with the Commanders. That's unbelievable. But he said, hey, look, your family's coming in. Use my suite. Bring your whole family. Let them come check you out. That's a pretty cool move. Maybe things have changed in that regard. But he's not a good NFL quarterback. He is bad. He said recently that he is open to taking a backup role after a workout. Look, I wouldn't hate it for one specific reason. If Jordan Love is, well, really two reasons, same eventual point. If Jordan Love gets hurt, it doesn't really matter. The Packers are going to stink. The old Howard Mudd quote, they're going to suck. You don't prepare for that. It just is what it is. You might as well tank and get the best pick you can next year. If Jordan Love is awful, you might as well be as awful as you can possibly be. So you end up either drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May. So honestly, I'm kind of for it because it just means we're going to be so miserable. I probably won't watch. Like week 15, if Carson Wentz is starting, I'm probably not going to watch because I can't do that to myself. I put myself through so much emotional and physical agony during football games, Packers games specifically. I could not take watching Carson Wentz. I would need to do some deep breathing exercises the entire game just to get through it. There have been many games over time where Abby will ask me, do you want to turn it off? You're not enjoying this at all. Would you rather just turn this game off? No, I got to see it through. Honestly, a full game of Carson Wentz, I might not be able to do that. I might actually have to turn the game off. We're going to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We are going to pick our winners for our 2 Royals Family 4-packs here during the break. We'll announce that and get to what is wrong with you after this on 580 Sports Talk.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
What the hell?
Before getting to today's What is Wrong with You, Bruce and Robert, they are the winners of our Royals Family 4-packs, who just gave away on the text line last segment.
Very scientific way that we did it. Vinny Pasquantino has 7 home runs and 19 runs driven in, so we took the text that we received 7th and 19th.
So thank you to everyone who jumped in. We will get our 2 winners set up with their tickets here in the immediate future. And maybe we'll have another surprise or so a little bit later on in the show. I'd keep listening if I were you, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. And if you want to go spend a day at the K, I think that'll be of significant interest to you.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark.
No, you really can't, especially on a nice day. Oh, nothing beats it. Let's get to our What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain's going to join us in a little bit for Jayhawk Weekly. But first, our What Is Wrong With You, as always, is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to your metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field here in the capital city. Our current weekly winner we found yesterday, the woman in Salt Lake City at the Salt Lake City International Airport who was trying to smuggle meth into the airport onto a plane. And she did so in a full-size jar full of peanut butter.
Yeah.
And other snacks, too.
Yeah,
Apples and crackers.
Yeah, she had a whole thing of snacks and a little bit of meth, too, just to try to... I think the snacks were a diversion, right? Like, oh, they just think I'm bringing a feast. They won't check this peanut butter. They'll understand that I've got a plastic knife and some apples and some Ritz crackers. I just want to have a snack on the plane.
It's the perfect crime. All right, 2 new stories today, trying to take down the meth peanut butter. My story takes us to Springfield, Colorado. Do you know where Springfield is?
Way southeast.
Yeah.
Like just about you're just about to Kansas.
Okay.
You go that far east and well south.
So we head to Springfield, Colorado, where we meet a driver who was pulled over for speeding and then tried to switch places in the front seat with his dog to avoid arrest. An officer watched the man maneuvering inside his car before he got out on the passenger side on a Saturday night in Springfield, a town of just 1,300 people, according to a post from the police on Facebook. The man said he was not behind the wheel, though he clearly showed signs of being drunk. He ran from the officer when asked about how much he had had to drink and was caught within 20 yards.
So you run very fast.
After being taken to the hospital to be checked out, the man was arrested on suspicion of charges, including DUI, of alcohol and or drugs and driving ability impaired. He also had some previous arrest warrants out. So pretty simple. Guy's cruising around with his dog. He's been drinking. He got pulled over and said, "Oh, man, Skipper, got to slide over here." And just switched spots with the dog.
I can't believe that didn't work.
No, sorry, officer. Chip here was driving. He's just learning, though.
Yeah, Fido, we're trying to teach an old dog some new tricks.
Come on, Rover. What are you doing? You can't go over the double yellow line.
He's having trouble reaching the pedals and being able to see over the windshield on account of he's a dog. Also, all the traffic lights are gray.
There are plenty of pictures on the internet of dogs like put in human clothes doing human things, like sitting at desks with a tie on.
Mm-hmm.
I just imagine a dog like wearing a Motley Crue t-shirt behind the wheel of a pickup truck talking to a police officer.
Yeah, I was just doing my owner a solid. He got blitzed. I went and picked him up from the bar.
Yeah, just trying to help out.
Sorry if I ran the gray light.
Also, woof. I just love that. Like, you're the police officer, you're looking into the back of this truck, and you just see this guy lift the dog up, slide over, set him right down there. That's incredible.
Wow, that's so good. That is so good. All right, for my story today, we are going to Maryland, Harford County. We meet 39-year-old Michael David Stevens II, who loves to steal. Minutes after he bonded out of jail for allegedly skipping his theft trial, a man was accused of stealing a privately owned military truck and leading authorities on a chase. Online court records show he was scheduled for trial to start January 24th regarding 2 counts of theft from $1,500 to under $25,000. That same day, there was a bench warrant for failure to appear. A jail staffer said that Stevens was booked Wednesday for failure to appear and then posted an unsecured bond of $1,500 on Friday. He was released around 6 p.m. According to Harford County deputies, they responded at approximately 6:35 on that same day to a home in the 900 block of Rock Spring Road in the town of Bel Air regarding someone stealing a privately owned 5-ton military vehicle. I got some questions about how you come to own one of those privately.
Yeah, I've never been to one of those auctions, tell you that much.
The address of the home is a block away from the jail. Well, maybe that's why he had the military truck. Felt like if things got rowdy, he could ride it out in the truck. The homeowner jumped onto the truck trying to prevent the theft, but the suspect drove off, and luckily the homeowner managed to get off without being injured. According to deputies, Stevens was later seen driving into Bel Air. He made his way down Route 24, then turned onto I-95. Law enforcement followed, trying but failing to stop him with stop sticks. Eventually, Stevens reached Baltimore City and stopped at Conkling Street. He tried to run from the scene, but deputies caught him. A local woman told WBAL in Baltimore that the truck could not get down the street because it was too big. Once he tried to run, he was quickly apprehended. Authorities said no one was injured, but they claimed Stevens crashed into multiple vehicles. He is now being charged with motor vehicle theft, 2 counts of first-degree assault, 2 counts of second-degree assault, and failing to obey a lawful order. A preliminary hearing is set for June 8th. He is being held, this time, without bond.
Smart. Good decision there. This reminds me of old video game reference here. Grand Theft Auto Vice City. There was a cheat code to get something called the Rhino tank. There's a giant tank, and as soon as you crashed into something, it blew up. Like the car would blow up or whatever. This reminds me of that. Like, how do you get one of these? How do I procure a 5-ton military vehicle? I would like to know. I want to know how much it costs.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. It kind of reminds me too of the story of the one guy in there's like a Netflix documentary about it, guy in Granby, Colorado, who built his own like fortress tank and just rampaged through the town and took everything out.
Awesome.
Didn't end well for him by his own hand, if I remember right. But yeah, like going through town on a military vehicle is just not the move. Like,
no, probably not very smart. That's a great story. Who you got today?
Who do we got today? We've got, man, the guy tried to pin a DUI on his dog, man. Like, as much as I like my story and the image of somebody privately owning, like, where do you store a 5-ton like, that doesn't go in the garage.
No,
right?
No, that's just got to be chilling.
Yeah, it's got like its own driveway, like if you had an RV.
Like by the carriage house. Oh, yeah, that's my tank.
Great story. Very funny that he couldn't wait 35 minutes before doing more crime after he bonded out for his other crime. But
addicted to the game.
Look, man, he tried to pin the DUI on his dog. He thought, I got it.
Does the DUI dog beat meth peanut butter?
I think it
does too. I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, meth trafficking, bad, obviously. This guy tried to pin a DUI on his dog. That is too funny. The DUI dog, that is our new winner today in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply here in Topeka. We'll get to a break. Michael Swain will hop on with us next on 580 Sports Talk.
stay in the game.
I told him that was vodka.
Dollar signs.
Mike. What day is it, Mike? What a scene in Lawrence, Kansas tonight.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports and Network. That's where you can go to find all of his tremendous work covering KU. You can also follow him on Twitter at mswain247, and he joins us every single Tuesday at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour for Jayhawk Weekly here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. What's going on, Michael? How are you?
Doing well. Hope you guys are having a good start to the week.
Yes, it has been a pretty darn good start so far. Want to look back to last week to open things up, though, today, Michael. The surprising, at least to some, commitment of top 10 recruit Mackenzie Mbako to Indiana instead of to KU. I know a lot of folks, myself included, were almost convinced it was going to be Kansas. It ends up being Indiana in the end. Was there any particular event during that recruitment that was the reason why it swung from one to the other? Was it always IU, or is this just one of those things where you throw your hands up and say, that's recruiting sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's one of those where you just got to look at the modern landscape of college basketball recruiting in particular, where things really switch and change quickly. You know, what was it, Friday? Friday morning when I think people were waking up, I think the belief, at least in Lawrence, was still that Mackenzie Mbako would go to Kansas. The coaches talked to him on Thursday night and still were of the belief and had heard from Mackenzie that it was likely going to be Kansas. And then on Friday, things get a little weird, right? It's hard to get a hold of Mackenzie. And all of a sudden, I think maybe about an hour before he commits, I think Kansas kind of got word that it wasn't going to be them. And look, I think this happens, right? Kansas benefited from a situation like this earlier in the spring with Marcus Adams. You know, he committed to UCLA. He told Mick Cronin he was going to go there. Bill Self calls and he changes his mind, and now he's going to be arriving in Lawrence in 3 weeks. So it's one of these things where you got to take it for what it is, which is just modern college basketball recruiting, where whether it be guarantees in the form of minutes, name, image, and likeness, there are a lot of factors that go into these recruitments nowadays. And I think there are a lot of different things now that can sway recruitment. And I think this is one of those situations where Indiana pulled out some more stops and were able to get him on board. And it was one of those situations where I'm not sure if Kansas necessarily had the opportunity to say, hey, maybe we can do this for you too.
Looking to the players who have left from KU recently because of the Hunter Dickinson commitment a couple weeks back, obviously a new center. He's going to get the playing time. He could play for as many as 2 years. Some of the young big guys want to move because they want to play. Duh. We've talked about that plenty before. You only have so long to play. You might as well actually get on the court. The most interesting of the two, I think, is Ernest Uday, who we heard earlier this week is taking a visit to Duke, and he's also potentially got visits lined up at TCU and Kansas State. From that group, Michael, knowing what you know about Ernest and how he developed in his first and now only year at KU, does it feel like one of those looks like the best fit? We thought K-State, honestly, with their need for a 5, actually makes a lot of sense for him. Which of those groups, or are there any others, do you think, that are good fits for Ernest?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're talking about fit combined with minutes and opportunity to showcase your skill set, I mean, K-State's a pretty good opportunity for him, right? You look at what they're losing at the 5 position and the way that they want to play basketball. I think it really fits what Ernest does, where he's not going to get a lot of back-to-the-basket post-ups, right? It's going to be a lot of lobs, pick and roll, set screen, hard roll to the rim, right? That's kind of what Ernest's game is right now. He's not really a back-to-the-basket post-up type of player. I think K-State would be a great fit. I think Duke feels pretty good about where they're at with him, which all things considered is pretty funny that you look at Duke and Mackenzie Mbako deciding to leave Duke, right? Because they had so many forwards in the form of mostly kind of 4 men, right? You think about Mark Mitchell, Flipkowski, guys that probably play the 4 a little bit more. But Duke, because there are so many bodies there. And then if Ernest Uday picks there after leaving Kansas because, right, the minutes would be hard to come by, I just think that would be a very interesting destination and interesting choice. And then TCU is really interesting too, right? You look at them and what they've done with the guard position, right? You've got Jameer Nelson Jr., I believe Avery Anderson from Oklahoma State is there too. So I think you look at the spots, K-State probably is the best fit. I think the best guards he could play with might be at TCU. And then in terms of brand, right? I mean, Duke is just up there as much as Kansas did. So 3 really interesting opportunities for Ernest.
Is there any chance that Uday's gonna reconsider and return to KU? I don't ask because I necessarily expect it, but fans get attached to their guys and guys who commit, and you see it. I know you see it even more than I do, all over Twitter or the message boards or wherever else. Like, well, what if he comes back? What if he comes back? I mean, what's the percentage chance of that?
0. Let's be real here. I think you look at this and there's no chance he comes back. It's another one of those situations where I think things change pretty quickly. I think the family had told KU that, hey, we'd like Ernest to be there. And I think his AAU coach had different ideas. And that's the dynamic right here. And I think it's all up to the guy's choice, right? If Ernest want to be at KU, he'd still be at KU. It's him who gets to decide where he goes in the portal, not his parents, not his AAU coach. So I think just different factors in play there. And I think it's one of those situations where I think maybe once you cross that bridge, it's kind of hard to come back.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly, as he does on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline every Tuesday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Michael on Twitter at mswain247. So if the door's closed for Ernest Uday's return, what does KU now turn to for a backup big? Do you think they will peruse the portal? Is there a possibility of maybe a class of 2023 big man that might enter the picture? What is the next step towards making sure that they have some cover in the post?
Yeah, I think it's going to come from the portal. I just look at this high school class right now. It's not very good to begin with in terms of talent, right? I think you read what a lot of the experts at 24/7 Sports say, it's a down class. And I think 2024 class is going to be down too. So I don't know if you're going to want to go and get a rotational big man from the high school ranks right now. That leaves the portal. And I think KU, in terms of going and getting guys, right, you're going to have to get someone that's got to be willing to play a role, at least for 1 year, right? I think you can maybe try and pitch someone on saying, hey, if Hunter comes in and he's great, maybe he'll leave and go to the NBA and then it's your show in the next year. But I think it's going to be someone that probably is more on the developmental side. Someone that's probably closer to a lot like what Ernest Uday was going to be, right? A guy that needs some time to figure it out. And he's going to have to figure it out about kind of 10 to 15 minutes a game. And I think that's kind of the guy they're going to look for. Obviously, I think the dead period starts on Thursday morning. So they've got, some time here now between now and Memorial Day weekend to kind of really hone in, because as far as I know, there aren't going to be any visitors coming into town tonight. So they've got time to figure it out. And they're going to need to kind of find a guy that fits a specific role, because you got a star center in Hunter Dickinson, and it's going to be really hard to get a guy from the portal to come to Kansas to play second fiddle, at least for 1 year.
Back to departed KU big man for a moment. Zuby Ejiofor has chosen his next destination. He's going to go play for Rick Pitino at St. John's. What do you think about that fit for Zuby?
I think it's great. We would go there, play, learn, right? I think you talk about Ernest, learning on the floor. Well, Zuby's going to have every opportunity to do that. And I think the Big East fits him. I think Rick Pitino is a really good X's and O's coach. I think he's going to put Zuby in the position to have a lot of success. I think that roster is built out with some good talent. And so I think it's a great spot for him, in a spot where he's going to get a lot more of an opportunity immediately than he would have gotten at Kansas. So hard to blame him for that.
We're chatting with Michael Swain. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks better than anybody and does so over at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find Michael on Twitter at mswain247. Go make sure you're a VIP at 24/7, by the way, if you're not already. Best way to get all of the breaking news and best insight before anybody else does, or anybody else passes it off as their own information anyway. Michael, wanted to get to the football side of things. Definitely did not intend to make a comment about anyone else. Certainly, I would never do such a thing. I did want to ask about the football side of things. KU picked up a big-time recruit or transfer commitment this week, from Dylan Brooks. No, not that Dylan Brooks. I made that same joke yesterday. From Auburn, former top 100-ish, or maybe he was top 100 coming out of high school when he eventually committed to Auburn. Edge rusher. KU needs a lot of help on that defensive line. Some nice pieces, but they need some big-time contributors going forward for this year and going into the future. What do you make of this Dylan Brooks commitment?
I think it's really good. You mentioned Twitter earlier, and I've seen some comments about, he only had 5 tackles and maybe a tackle for loss at Auburn last year. And I think my retort would say, well, he's a redshirt freshman. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things about this edition is this isn't a JUCO kid with 2 years left and He's going to need a year to acclimate and maybe 1 year to be a contributor. I think you can look at this upcoming season for him and say, cool, can Dylan Brooks be a part of the rotation? Doesn't need to be an impact player. Doesn't need to be that right off the bat. Can he just be a part of the rotation and give KU good snaps at either the strong side, defensive end spot, or maybe even you play some weak side? The Utah State transfer who came in was kind of hurt, and we'll have to see what happens to him at the weak side. But I think you look at what he is, right, coming out of high school, a guy that was a top 100 recruit, a player that I think, the Auburn coaching staff thought highly of, right? You look at the long arms he has, right, 6'4", kind of got the build that you're looking for. And to get on the field last year and play about 10 to 15 snaps, I think is huge, because you look last season, right, I think Tommy Dunn and DJ Withers are two players at defensive tackle that the coaching staff is high on and expects to take a step forward. Well, those guys also average 15 snaps per game. So very similar in terms of the role they had. And now you're looking for Brooks. Can he take a step forward in his first year with the program? And then maybe in 2024 and 2025, maybe that's when you tap into that top 100 recruit potential and really kind of unleash that, probably at the strong side spot, because you look at his frame and he's already 235 pounds out there, and he looks like he can get up to 250, 260, and that's a strong side defensive end if I've ever seen one. So I think it's a big addition, one that can help KU this year, but I think more so long term can really help bolster that defensive end spot.
I think most people who are really in tune with KU football know the name Scott Aligo, but for people who maybe aren't aware of exactly what he does, and I don't know exactly what his title is. I don't know if it's general manager or what his exact title is, but he came in with Leipold, has been so good at working the transfer portal. That's what he did at Michigan State before coming in. Just how valuable has he been to this team? Because KU has been, relative to competition, one of the better teams in the country, or at least in the region and in the conference, in terms of bringing in talent via the portal these last two off seasons.
Yeah, so his specific title, I believe, is Director of Scouting. And I think the setup that KU has is really good, where they've kind of got a quartet of guys, right? So it's Rob Binello is kind of the general manager. You've got Scott Aligo there as the Director of Scouting, then Greg Schwarzkopf and Grant Murray. And they kind of create this foursome of guys that are really, really smart and have really good eyes for it. And so with what Aligo does, really evaluating these guys in the portal, how do they fit at Kansas? What would their projection look like? What would the trajectory look like? How does this fit? And so he's a guy that helped Mel Tucker really turn that Michigan State program around. And, it's funny, ever since he left, right, the portal maybe hasn't been as kind to Michigan State. And so I think you look at it overall, and he's been a really big addition. And I think just the way that those four work together is really impressive, where I think it's not necessarily about who gets credit or who found who. It's about the collective, finding them, getting them on campus. And when Kansas has gotten these guys on campus, they're hitting above 50%. And so flip a coin when a transfer gets on campus. I mean, that's the chances, maybe a little bit better, that KU can land them. And you got to like those odds. So I think overall, Aligo has done a great job. And I think those four guys really have been really important to this kind of turnaround and really bolstering the strength of the roster through the portal.
All right, Michael, we've got just about 1 minute for this final question. What else is KU still looking for in the portal to round out the roster for 23?
Yeah, I still think it's a defensive end. I think that position is just kind of bare right now. Obviously, I think you look at Jeremy Robinson being kind of the number one guy at the strong side defensive end spot, right? You know what you have there. He's a really good player, but he's also, can be a little bit banged up at times, struggles to stay healthy. So you need more guys. So I think they'll go get another defensive end with that spot, and from there, I think they'll be done. And it's kind of interesting to look last year where they added about 20 transfers. Well, this year, I think it's going to be kind of the 2 in the spring, and that's going to be it. I think that's kind of the spot they're at with the scholarship numbers.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks and does it better than anybody else over at fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go follow him on Twitter if you haven't already. His handle is at mswain247, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every single Tuesday for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you then.
That's Michael Swain from fog.net and 24/7 Sports. Yeah, that was a big deal yesterday that KU was able to land Brooks. How many times has KU pulled in recent memory a top 100 player in a class? And how many times in recent memory did they bring in a transfer? Oh, man, this guy might be good. And then he sucked.
Yeah, that happened a lot.
A lot.
The kid from Florida about a decade ago under Weiss, the big defensive tackle.
Oh,
Chris something.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Remember Laquiviante Gonzalez?
Yeah, I remember him.
Kicked off the team stealing clothes from the locker room. Come on, man. We've got to get to a break. We'll lead off the 5 o'clock hour with our headlines on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 1 hour to go on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero with you until 6 o'clock tonight. We got Royals baseball pregame coverage starting at 8, and then 8:40 first pitch from Petco Park in San Diego as the Royals take on the Padres tonight. All of the game, pregame, postgame, and the action itself you can hear right here on the Royals Radio Network on 580 WIBW coming up this evening. This hour of the show, we will get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines in just a moment. Potentially huge news coming out of the ACC. It is just sort of blown up out of nowhere that apparently almost half that conference wants out. And we'll get to that coming up here in a few minutes. No, Jake and Fulton talked about that plenty on Mic'd Up today. Plus, Royals Padres preview for tonight, Brady Singer versus Seth Lugo. We will get to your texts and we will get to your YouTube comments as well throughout the hour. Our text line is 785-272-9429. And of course, you can jump in and be a part of the show on YouTube as well. Our channel on YouTube is called Sports on 580. Go subscribe if you haven't already. It is free. All it takes is one click and a Google or YouTube account. Then you can watch us. Sports on 580 live stream is up right now. Hop into the comment section and hang out with us throughout the rest of the show today. Let's get into it with our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Dan, first one for me. We've got a change for one of the semifinalists in the Eastern Conference of the NBA. This was big enough that it made the top of the hour national news just now. That was a little surprising. Slow news day everywhere,
right?
Slow news day everywhere, I guess. Doc Rivers out as the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. They were embarrassed on Sunday afternoon by their arch rival Boston Celtics. Knocked out of the playoffs again. They have still, while being led by Joel Embiid, never been to a conference finals. Doc Rivers just loves to blow leads in playoff series. He cannot help it. He is an addict who needs to get his fill. He just has to keep blowing series.
His record in closeout games is something like 17-33.
That's bad. That is really bad. I don't know if you know that, but that is awful. He has had so many jobs. Orlando, Boston, LA, Philly. Is there another one in there I'm missing?
No, there will be. Somebody will hire him. But
how? And I know how, because the NBA is worse than any other league when it comes to recycling coaches. But still,
he has had a certain level of success. Like, he's a big locker room culture guy. Like, he was successful in Orlando, helped kind of turn that franchise around. They were in the dumps. I think he was coach of the year his first year with Orlando. He comes to Boston. They give him the big three. They win a title. He's got a ring. I mean, you're certified if you win a ring, right? So they win a ring and they get really close to winning another one 2 years later in the finals. Then he goes to the Clippers. And in his last two stops, the Clippers and the Sixers, they have not reached a conference finals. And they have probably underachieved in failing to reach a conference finals in that stretch. And that is where the reputation has been built, where Doc Rivers teams combust when the lights get bright. So there are teams out there who would love to go to the conference semifinals 3 straight years, to be good enough to put yourself in a position to advance to a conference finals 3 straight years. There are some teams out there who would love that.
Yep.
But once you've done it 3 straight times and you don't advance, then you don't love it so much because you start to think, okay, is there anything else? What's the old country song? Is that all there is?
Look, again, we've been over the MVP should they, shouldn't they thing for a while. The facts of the case are your best player won MVP. You spent a lot to go get James Harden, who I think has probably been a little bit better in Philly than some people expected. I think a lot of people thought he was toast when he left Brooklyn. And you've got enough decent pieces around them. Tyrese Maxey's become a nice player. You gave a buttload of money to Tobias Harris. You better win. They haven't done it. They have failed.
The expectation there is to win a championship. That was the point of the process, is to get enough assets that eventually you would find a franchise-altering star, a guy you can win a title with. And they did. They came up with Joel Embiid. Now, they whiffed on some other picks. Believe you me, if they could do it over again, would they have taken Markelle Fultz number 1 overall? They have publicly said, Brian Colangelo has publicly said they would, but no, you wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't take Jahlil Okafor in the lottery.
No.
You wouldn't take Michael Carter Williams 11th overall. Like, there are some big misses in that whole process, but the idea is all we got to do is hit once. And they did.
Mm-hmm.
They hit with Joel Embiid. The thing about Embiid is I thought there was a great story about on Defector that was titled, Joel Embiid is a finite resource. Like, there's only but so much Joel Embiid greatness that you're going to get because of the way that he's built, because of the injury history that he has. There's but so much of Joel Embiid that you can squeeze. There's got to be something else. And a rapidly aging James Harden, who is one of the worst playoff performers of his generation relative to his level of talent, is not it. It's not the answer. And Doc Rivers isn't the guy that's been proven that gets you over the hump unless you give him 3 Hall of Famers.
The potential replacements that have been mentioned for Philly include Mike D'Antoni. That name has come up. Nick Nurse, from formerly of the Raptors, who won a title with the Raptors when Kawhi Leonard was there. You've had, I mean, it's all retreads. Mike Budenholzer's name has come up. He was just fired by Milwaukee. It's all names that you know. Monty Williams, who was fired this week, his name has come up for that job. The NBA is so bad about getting new coaches in. Now, I think Nick Nurse is a really good coach, and I would actually love to see that. Here's the problem. Joel Embiid's never going to play a full 82 games. Nick Nurse would play his team 98 minutes a night if he could and never use the bench. He hates depth. Like, we need 6 players. That's all we need. That's what Nick Nurse does. That's why Toronto kept breaking down the last couple years, because they had no depth and they just played everybody all 48 minutes. That would not work with a team that currently has James Harden and Joel Embiid on it. Maybe Mike D'Antoni. You know Harden's going to stick around if they hire D'Antoni.
And, of course, the guy running the show there is Daryl Morey, who previously hired D'Antoni in Houston. So there's a existing relationship there.
But also, like, how much juice is left to squeeze out of that one?
It does. It feels like it's starting to feel like Premier League soccer. It's like the same guys revolving around all of the jobs that have been high expectations but didn't quite meet them. Like, good enough to warrant the high expectations, good enough to finish decently. Like, Monty Williams, I think, is a really good coach. I don't think he was the problem in Phoenix. The problem was they didn't have enough time to figure out how they were going to play their guys together when they traded for Kevin Durant, and they also had no depth. Like, that was not a Monty Williams problem. I'm stunned.
Also, DeAndre Ayton hates basketball.
Yes. Like, Monty Williams being the fall guy for that makes no sense. Somebody's going to hire him, probably Milwaukee, and they're going to benefit greatly from that.
Well, what if they switched coaches?
That would be pretty funny.
That would be very funny.
Like, Mike Budenholzer.
Budenholzer to Phoenix?
Yeah, fired by Milwaukee, won the championship there 2 years ago. Like, he has built really, really good regular season teams. He is a great 82-game coach. Is he a great in-game coach? That is the question, because there are a lot of times he just says, hey, we're going to do what we do. And it's either going to work or it's not. We're not changing course in the middle of this. We're just going to do what we do. And over the course of 82 games, if you've got enough talent, that works really, really well. But sometimes you got to adjust in a best-of-7 series. And Budenholzer's not that guy.
No.
And that's why he's out of a job. So, I don't know. Could he help Phoenix, a team that kind of needs an identity with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and whatever else they managed to assemble around those two guys? Maybe he would. Would Monty Williams be a really good fit, perhaps in Milwaukee, where he's got plug-and-play stars who will, respect him? Yeah, I would guess so. But it is strange. It is. It's just, it feels like I don't want to call them retreads because I think they're good coaches. I mean, it's not, I think Doc's probably a little overrated, but he has won a ring.
Yeah, that was big enough to make the national news, but yeah, there's going to be some change in Philly. They need some more players. Like, they just need more dudes who can play, and a coach who's not Doc Rivers.
Yes, that would certainly help. Let's just go ahead and move into a quick edition of our
playoffs
roundup.
We're running out of games.
We are. We're down to the conference final. And there will be games every other night in the NBA, but we have no NHL until Thursday. The conference finals are set. It's Dallas to the finals in the West after their 2-1 win over Seattle last night in Game 7 of that series in Dallas. So it is the Stars and the Golden Knights starting Friday night in the Western Conference Finals. Thursday night, you'll have the Eastern Conference Finals, the Florida Panthers, and the Carolina Hurricanes. This is going to be the sunniest conference finals in the history of the NHL.
Yeah. Well, they, not that they play outdoors, but walking up to the stadium would be beautiful.
Lot of balmy weather. A lot of fans showing up to the arena in shorts and tank tops.
And not Canadians.
I will take Dallas and Carolina to advance.
Give me Dallas. I'll take Florida. I'll take the Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep their magic going.
Yeah, I think they're hot right now.
Meanwhile, the conference finals do start tonight in the NBA. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals between the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Nuggets are 6-point favorites and are the betting favorites to win the series. It is the 8th time the Nuggets and the Lakers have met in the NBA playoffs, going all the way back to 1979. Denver has not beaten the Lakers a single time, including in their most recent meeting, which was the Bubble Conference Finals in 2020, a series won by the Lakers in 5 games. When asked about that series yesterday, Denver star and 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic says, "To be honest, I don't remember anything."
That is an extremely
it's a very
Nikola Jokic quote.
It's a great Nikola Jokic answer. It's also a very relatable 2020 answer. Like, I remember very little of that series either, to be honest, other than Mason Plumlee forgetting to guard Anthony Davis and Davis hitting the game-winning 3 in Game 2 of that series. Denver was winning final seconds. We already did sports regret today.
Yeah. We don't have to relive it.
I'm not going to drag you
It's 2023 now.
Deeper into that. The thing about the previous 7 meetings in the postseason between Denver and Los Angeles is that in every other one of those meetings, Los Angeles has had obviously the best player, going back to 1979 in Kareem, through the 80s with Magic, in the late 2000s and early 2010s with Kobe, and in the 2020 bubble playoffs as well with LeBron. This is the first time that it has felt like Denver has had the best player in a playoff series against the Lakers. And I think it is that simple in this series. We can talk about the Austin Reeveses and Kentavious Caldwell-Popes of this series all we'd like. If Nikola Jokic is the best player in the series, Denver is going to win the series. If he's not the best player in the series, it will be because Anthony Davis has ascended to a higher plane of basketball godhood than maybe we expected of him, because it will mean that he successfully neutralized Jokic defensively while still carrying the Lakers on offense.
I was going to say, I think Davis is probably, to me, the linchpin of this entire thing, the X factor piece, if you will, because you're going to get a certain baseline of quality from LeBron James. Probably not for 7 games. He'll probably go crazy in one of them, but you know to a degree, production-wise, what you can get out of LeBron at this point. You need AD to be good defensively, and really you need him to be great on one end and at least good on the other, I think, for the Lakers to be able to succeed in this one. Whereas for Denver, I think you can kind of rely on the pieces around Jokic to just, like, have some combination of guys playing well. Like, a great game from Jamal Murray, awesome, clutch. But, like, Bruce Brown has a great game, plus Jokic does his thing. I think that's good enough.
Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah,
hit
MPJ.
hit some threes.
I don't know why I couldn't pull that one out.
KCP hit some threes. Like, they've got...
The bench guys have one really good game in reserve minutes.
Yeah, this is not a series where Denver knows who they are and the other team doesn't. I think that was true to an extent with Minnesota and Phoenix. I think the Lakers have kind of discovered who they are, but they might have to be something a little different. I don't think they exactly know how they're going to, like, because those other teams, they knew how they were going to guard Jokic. Like, Minnesota knew they were going to throw Rudy Gobert at him. Didn't work. Never does. Phoenix knew they were going to throw DeAndre Ayton at him. Didn't work. Never has. And now the Lakers, like, they can't do Anthony Davis on him for 40 minutes. Like, in the bubble series in 2020, what worked for the Lakers was Dwight Howard. They threw Dwight Howard at Jokic for 20 minutes and 6 fouls, and they annoyed him, and they took him out of the series. They didn't take him out of the series, but that was his worst playoff performance. He was getting beat up by bigger guys. There are no bigger guys for the Lakers. Jokic is the big guy. There's no bigger guy that they can bring off the bench. Mo Bamba's hurt, and he's not bigger. He's big-ish, but he's not bigger.
He does have a song, though, so
he does.
How much does that swing
Big
things?
song. Man, shout out to Sheck West, wherever he is.
Living on money from that song.
Living on Mo Bamba residuals. Hey, man, one-hit wonder means you still made one hit.
That's right.
I have a lot of trouble seeing the Lakers able to maintain high-level play from their two best players over the course of a 7-game series, with 4 of the 7 being played at altitude, which is no joke. The later you get in the playoffs, I think that the thing that scares Nuggets fans the most is the officials intervening and the NBA deciding they want a Lakers-Celtics finals, and they're just being but, like, look at the small markets who've been in the NBA finals in the last 14 years. Like, Oklahoma City made an NBA finals.
Yeah.
Cleveland made several NBA finals.
It's about stars.
Yes.
Not about markets.
And if Jokic is the biggest star in this series, if it is his time, then Denver will win the series. And if it is not, for whatever reason, if Davis is able to guard him and still give you 25 and 15 over 40 minutes for the entirety of a best-of-7 series, I will have no choice but to tip my Nuggets cap in deference to losing to the Lakers again.
I know you're taking a vacation this summer, but if you want to use a day off, to recover if things go badly, please do.
I might, but
or to celebrate.
But here's the thing. I'm feeling really optimistic about this.
Good.
As a Nuggets fan, I feel like they have been the best team in the playoffs. And if I can divorce myself from my bias, the numbers and, like, just the visual, like, every other team in these playoffs has gotten blown out at least once, has looked really bad for stretches. Denver's 8-3 in the playoffs. They haven't lost a home game. The games they've lost were a game they could have won in regulation if Nikola Jokic had made a free throw with seconds to go against Minnesota, and 2 games in Phoenix where Devin Booker shot 128% from the field. Like, that is what it is taking to beat the Nuggets so far in the playoffs. They are playing like the best team left, and they have maybe the best player left. And if both of those things are true, then they should win. But if LeBron turns back the clock, if AD's got another level he can reach as a two-way player that he reaches in this series while playing 35 minutes a night, then the Lakers can shade it. But I do. I'm feeling pretty good. Like, I'm a nervous wreck, but I'm feeling pretty good as far as nervous wrecks go.
Continuing on with today's 580 Sports Talk headlines, a little after we talked to Michael Swain this afternoon, but we've got some breaking Kansas basketball news. Kansas has a new transfer commitment. You might know his last name quite well. Parker Brown. Yes, that Brown family has committed to KU. That has been confirmed by Mrs. Brown, Lisa. She confirmed to a couple different KU beat writers this afternoon that Parker Brown is transferring to KU. We should note, every Brown family member who was on scholarship at Kansas has left with a national championship. Their dad played 1 year as a walk-on, did not win a national championship. KU needed this. Now, he's not going to play a ton. He was in every game starter each of the last 2 years at Santa Clara, 66 games, 65 starts. Last year averaged 7.7 points a game and just under 6 rebounds a game. The year prior, 7 points and just over 5 rebounds. But he's 6'10".
Yeah.
And KU needs a backup big man badly. So Here it is. No Ejiofor, no Uday. Bring in Parker Brown, a little veteran presence. He has played high major basketball before. He played at Missouri.
Yes, he did.
For 2 years, he was at Mizzou. And then they fired Kwanzaa. And then not a lot of nice things were said about the program, and he left. So, or that was the year before Kwanzaa left anyway. But Parker Brown, the newest member of the Kansas Jayhawks.
Fascinating.
He's going to play 8 minutes a game.
Yeah, right now he's back at 5.
Yeah.
He's Hunter Dickinson insurance.
And KJ will play there a little bit. Brown will play there a little bit.
They could put a little muscle on him, get him up to 220 maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Bulk him up.
Interestingly, his field goal percentage has actually gone down every year he's been in college, but he's also taken a way higher volume of shots every year in college. Last year, took 6 field goals a game, shot 55% from the floor. That's pretty good. Not necessarily someone you want at the free throw line, a career 49% shooter from the stripe, but some KU fans will tell you aren't all of our guys 49% free throw shooters. So, no, this is a good depth get for KU. This had been rumored earlier today over the VIP stuff over at 24/7. I told you when we talked to Michael, go be a VIP at 24/7 if you're not already. He had tipped off, hey, look for Brown. He might be a guy to watch here. And the Brown family back to KU. This is a little interesting. There was all the stories about how Christian Brown was a lifelong KU fan. He always liked KU. Parker and their other brother were Mizzou fans. And obviously, Mrs. Brown went to Missouri. You may have heard that story once or twice or a billion times in the last 4 years.
Right.
But now one of those lifelong Mizzou fans is going to play for KU. That's probably a pretty easy sell for Bill Self, right? Like, hey, come play at Kansas, 1. 2, we're going to win a lot more than you did at Santa Clara. You get to be at home. You're going to play behind Hunter Dickinson. Like, come on, this should be easy. And maybe it was. I didn't even know he had eligibility left.
Yeah, me either. But yeah, nice little surprise. It'll be easy guy for KU fans to root for. And
going to make the border war fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun there.
Yeah, there's a rivalry that needed a little extra spice.
Yeah, no kidding.
Next up for me, a very basketball-heavy edition of the 580 Sports Headlines. Tonight, before Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, the NBA will hold its 2023 Draft Lottery. The Pistons, Rockets, and Spurs each have a 14% probability of landing the number 1 overall pick, followed by the Hornets at 12.5%, the Trailblazers at 10.5%, the Magic at 9%, Indiana and Washington both at 6.5% roughly, the Jazz at 4.5%, Dallas 3%, Chicago 1.8%.
Say it with me, folks. Victor Wembanyama.
No, I will not say it with you. Toronto has a 1% chance. The Pelicans have 0.5% of a chance of winning tonight's lottery. Whoever wins the lottery, spoiler alert, will have the chance to select French phenom Victor Wembanyama with the number 1 pick in the 2023 draft. The 7'4" unicorn of a basketball player who might revolutionize the sport of basketball. Like, he's 7'4" and he plays like Kevin Durant.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to watch. There was a lot of talk last year about how Chet Holmgren, oh my God, this guy's so skinny, he can't play in the NBA. But it was, hey, I mean, look at his skill set. Once he gets healthy, he's going to look like a pretty good player. Victor Wembanyama is like that, but he also shoots threes and moves better than Chet Holmgren. It's kind of incredible, to be completely honest with you, watching him play. They played against one of the, was it G League Elite or Ignite, who they played in an exhibition earlier this year? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Ignite, I think.
It was some American G League affiliated team. He's a freak, and it is going to be fun to watch. The second best player in the class, Scoot Henderson. You don't hear a lot about him. He plays for G League Ignite. He skipped college, went right to the G League. I have seen from a lot of people who said, hey, in most years, if Scoot Henderson was the number 1 prospect, teams would be very happy with that. They'd be very happy to get Scoot Henderson. He just happens to be available in a year in which Victor Wembanyama is also available. So he's going to slide to number 2. But I think whoever gets the number 2 pick should be pretty happy about it. I think he's going to end up being a good player. Those are your 2 best. The best college player is Brandon Miller in the draft from Alabama.
Who we're all very familiar with.
Yeah. Is it Osar? AUSAR?
Amen and Osar. I don't know.
I think it's Aiden and Amen Osar. I think. They play for Overtime Elite, which isn't the G League. It's like if your entire school was playing basketball and making TikTok, that's kind of where they go. They're fairly well regarded. That's kind of your top 5-ish for this year's class, but everyone wants Wemby. That's who everyone is gunning for today. One other headline I want to get to, this is pretty wild from the WNBA. So that league has taken away a first-round pick from the Las Vegas Aces. They don't have a pick in next year's draft. They've already done their 23 draft. Their season actually just started. They don't have a pick next year because they've traded it already. So the league has taken away their 2025 draft pick following an investigation that found the franchise had violated league rules regarding impermissible player benefits as well as workplace policies. This is all tied up and also involves a suspension with their head coach. I think generally, fair or not, a lot of folks in the general public maybe don't know who a lot of WNBA head coaches are, especially. You've probably heard of Becky Hammon, though, because she was getting NBA interviews and has been a big deal for, better part of a decade at this point, and was an incredible player in her own right. She has been suspended because of this. Part of the investigation was into disparaging comments she made toward former Aces player Dearica Hamby about her pregnancy a couple of seasons ago. Made disparaging comments about it. Hamby was traded away. She did not say that it was Hammond who disparaged her. The investigation eventually led to that. Can't be doing that. Male, female, WNBA, regular NBA, any sport. You can't be saying that to people. Come on. And I know it's a different situation when you're talking about women's sports because, well, women carry children just biologically. But, yeah, you can't be doing that. I was surprised to see that today. I think a lot of people were. That, oh, shoot, Becky Hammon, what are you doing? Why would you say that to this person? So, yeah, they'll lose a first-round pick, and their superstar head coach is going to get suspended. Think that impacts her future dreams of going to the NBA?
It might, to be honest with you, although at the same time, it is different. Like dealing with women athletes is different than dealing with male athletes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. I think that I think there's still a possibility. She's got a lot of respect in the
Tons.
NBA.
When you work for Pop for so long, that happens.
So we'll see if this dents her reputation, but certainly in the women's game, it does.
That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines on this Tuesday afternoon. Let's take a break. But you know what? I'm feeling generous. We're celebrating today. It is 1 year of the new 580 Sports Talk. During the commercial break, why don't we give away another family 4-pack of Royals tickets? We've already given away one today. We're going to have a call-in for this one. The number is 785-272-9429. Let's do caller number 4 because it's been 4 games since the Royals have won. Caller number 4, 785-272-9429. A family 4-pack of Royals tickets coming your way. Call in. We're back with more 580 Sports Talk after this. 4, and he won our third family 4-pack of the day of tickets to a Kansas City Royals game. Congratulations to Brian. Enjoy heading to the game with your family, friends, some folks off the street, some folks you met in the parking lot, whoever it might be. Congratulations on winning tickets to the K for an upcoming game. By the way, I just sent a text to my wife, who for a few years bemoaned to me, fairly so, about how much she would get annoyed watching KU games on TV because of all the comments about, did you know Christian Brown's mom went to Missouri and he was a KU fan and yada, yada, and hated those stories. I texted her in all caps, hey, great news. Christian Brown's brother is transferring to KU. And she replied back, the eyes rolling emoji, the exasperated sighing emoji, and then the closed eyes frustrated emoji.
I'm just glad that ESPN has another KU mom to put on television.
Oh, yeah. Can't get enough of those.
What in the world was that last season? That late season fascination with putting every Kansas player's mom on camera as often as they possibly could. It was bizarre.
And, like, look, the story of KJ Adams' mom, and, you know, best wishes to Yvonne Adams and their whole family because she goes through cancer treatment. Like, that is obviously an important story to tell, and that she's going through something, has been very brave with it. That was a great story by CJ Moore, our good friend over at The Athletic, about her.
Yeah.
I understand that in the wake of that. But it's like, hey, Jalen Wilson, your mom, you know, what's going on with Ms. Wilson?
We saw DeJuan Harris's mom a lot, it felt like.
Yeah, let's see DeJuan's mom.
Grady Dick's mom every time he shot the ball.
It got to a point late in the year when watching the road games on TV, I could see, it'd be like, oh, yeah, that's Mr. and Mrs. Dick right by the basket. Yeah, I know. They're wearing alternating red and blue number 4 jerseys from Rally House. Like, I know exactly where they're sitting. And then they would zoom in on them on camera. Like, guys, come on. We get it. Your moms play basketball too. I understand. There should be more content here. But now we're getting even more of it. We're going to get more Brown family content, but I'm excited about that at the very least. I wanted to get to this today. I don't even know how much we can really dive into it because I don't know what's real, what's not real, how fast this could be moving. But there have been a couple of reports in recent days, including from friend of the program, Brett McMurphy from the Action Network, as well as another friend of the program, Ross Dellinger from Sports Illustrated, about a group of 7 schools in the ACC. It's a giant league. It's a humongous league. But 7 schools in the ACC, they're calling themselves the Magnificent Seven, which is as lame as possibly can be, that are pooling their ideas and resources and energy together to try to figure out how to break the ACC's grant of rights, which is the TV contracts and the agreement we're going to stay together through X year, yada, yada. They have a really long deal. It runs through 2036, I believe it is.
I think that's correct.
They signed a huge deal a couple years back when they created the ACC network with ESPN after the last round of realignment and all of that. Well, we have heard stories about FSU and Florida State's athletic director even, who has come out and said, it is unbelievable that UCF is going to start making more money than us. We pull more than our fair share of weight for this conference in football. We deserve more money. We deserve unequal revenue sharing favoring us. And I know we've heard similar things from Clemson over time. I know North Carolina, great academic school, good sports, great basketball. Obviously, you know, they want a little piece of that. You know, what has Syracuse done for us recently? No. We want more of that money. So according to Brett McMurphy, this group, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, notably not Duke, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Those are the 7 schools. Apparently, according to what I've read today, it takes 8 schools in a vote, in agreement, to break the grant of rights and dissolve it. If that happens, the ACC is, as we know it, dead. It will be gone. Yeah. Because you're not going to break a contract like that and with your own TV network if you don't have something already in the works. Now, that could be Greg Sankey has reached out, the commissioner of the SEC, and said, hey, Florida State and Clemson, like, you're in. We want you to. Because I'll say this much. If Texas A&M couldn't keep Texas out of the SEC, South Carolina ain't keeping Clemson out of the SEC. Okay, that's for sure. And I don't think Florida would have the pull to keep Florida State out either. They would take those 2. I'm sure the Big Ten has showed interest in some of these programs. And to be completely honest with you, you know who else I would bet dollars to donuts has made some calls to the East Coast. Brett Yormark. Because while they're not listed in this group of 7, this magnificent 7, you know who would just be geographically and now for rivalry purposes pretty much perfect fits for the new Big 12? Louisville and Pitt.
Yes.
Bring back the backyard brawl. Bring back the keg of nails, which has been dead for far too long.
Give West Virginia some friends.
Yes. I mean, give everyone friends. Louisville bridges a lot. You know, UCF's travel, going to be gross. That's one more opponent closer. Like, that makes too much sense. One thing that was pointed out to me online about all this, that, hey, we don't know anything. Like, it all comes to a head mid-summer. That's when the USC and UCLA announcements and the Texas-Oklahoma announcements happened mid-summer. But with the Pac-12 stuff over the last year, you know, Pac-12 is going to fall apart. They don't have a media deal, all this. There's been a lot of fighting amongst reporters, which is weird. Like, journalists are fighting. No, you're wrong. My sources are better. No, your sources are wrong. Mine are better. There's been a lot of that, including from some people we've had on the show who feel certain ways about certain conferences. No one has disputed this. Andy Staples has talked about it on podcasts. Nicole Auerbach wrote about it. Both of them work at The Athletic. Brett McMurphy has talked about this. Ross Dellinger has talked about this. Those are 4 writers at 3 different publications, all of whom have said, yeah, all these teams want out.
Brandon Marcello, who is the national college football reporter for 24/7 Sports, had this tidbit of information within the last hour from Florida State AD Michael Alford, claiming that a weighted revenue distribution model is gaining support among ACC administrators. So what the quote-unquote Magnificent 7 are really after, it's not more for everybody, it's more for them. And this would be a way to maintain the ACC, but put more money in the pockets of the programs that are generating that revenue. And for the most part, football is king. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, those are the premier football brands in that conference, right? I mean, I guess if you want to argue for Virginia Tech.
Even they've fallen on some hard times.
But yeah, like North Carolina State and Virginia are very funny to be in this group.
Yeah.
NC State's there because they're tagging along with UNC.
Yeah.
And Virginia, there was a joke yesterday that their dads are bankrolling the whole thing.
You got to have that friend.
Yeah.
No, you got to have the friend with money.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
The rich friend. So Alford tells Marcello that the merit-based model on postseason success could lead to more than $10 million in additional yearly revenue for a successful program. I don't know where they get those numbers from, but that's the idea. So the idea of it is very fun. The quote about UCF can't have a better grant of rights than us is very funny.
Yeah, it is.
It's extremely funny. But at the end of the day, yeah, like the ACC is in a weird spot here because obviously the SEC is the king and the Big Ten made their big move with UCLA and USC and got their television locked down. And so it felt like we were moving toward a Big Two and then the other power conferences sort of jostling for position. And the ACC has kind of gotten behind because the Pac-12 is operating out of urgency and almost desperation at this point.
Yep.
The Big 12 has been the aggressor. The Big 12 has been the one to put their best foot forward in all this. That leaves the ACC with the most onerous TV deal. They're the only ones not actively negotiating or not in a window where they could negotiate to change. Like they just signed this stuff. The ACC network is still in nascent stages. They now have to act in their own best interest to try and stay competitive financially, or they will find themselves falling behind in a way that could leave them picked apart. And so it's either find ways to stay together, even if that means doing more to fatten the pockets of the biggest brands in the conference, which you'll recall, I didn't go super great for the Big 12 when they did that.
Placated. No.
Well, yeah, that's a good word for it. That's the word I was looking for. It didn't go super great for the Big 12, but it kept the Big 12 alive.
Yeah, for the time being.
And that's kind of where the ACC is at right now. Like, how do we stay alive?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, and the question is, do they want to? Like, if you get you already have 7 schools. All right, let's say you talk to Louisville. Louisville's not included here. You're like, hey, Louisville, you see what the Big 12 is getting? Did you know in their contract, when they add other Power 5 schools, they will increase in money? Like, if they had G5 schools, the money per school doesn't go up. But if they had Power 5 schools, the money goes up for everyone.
And Louisville, like, they've been in every conference. They're not loyal to the ACC.
It was not all that long ago. They were in Conference USA.
They were in something called the Metro Conference before you were born.
Also not all that long ago. So, yeah, they'll go anywhere. At that point, there's no conference loyalty, but there is potential rivalry loyalty. Want to play Cincinnati again? That's a great rivalry. Play West Virginia again. That's a historic rivalry. There's so many reasons why that would make sense. This feels to me, maybe not something like this summer. This feels like this is going to happen, though. Like, again, every major outlet that covers college football has said, oh, yeah, all these teams want out. All of them. No one has disputed it. No one has said, oh, no, your sources are bad. All the major writers have said, yeah, this is happening. So maybe not this year, because I think the Pac-12 is going to figure out its stuff first. It's kind of year by year for all these conferences. That, okay, SEC made a move, and the Big Ten. Now the Big 12 got all of their stuff locked up. Now the Pac-12 has to survive. Then the ACC's turn. I'll tell you this, though. Anyone who said, that Big 12 deal, like, y'all didn't get as much money as you could have had. They might have left some money on the table. Brett Yormark signed the best deal possible for the Big 12. Everybody stays together. They got a raise, even with Oklahoma and Texas leaving. And now...
no dissent in these ranks.
No, they can be as aggressive as they want to be. And you can pick, like, hey, we have 2 conferences breaking down. We're going to go get the Rockies. We're going to get Appalachia. Oh, we're good. We're golden. Now, Big 12's in a great spot right now, whatever happens to the ACC. Let's get to a quick break. We'll preview Royals Padres up next on 580 Sports Talk. One night after Brad Keller nearly walked the entirety of the San Diego Padres roster and the rest of the stadium and everyone who attended Petco Park last night, we get Brady Singer tonight.
Singer coming off a good one.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can build on that. Hopefully he can not go 3-0 to 7 different hitters.
Yeah, I mean...
one foot in front of the other for Brady, right?
That's a pretty low bar, yeah. Well, I hate to play good cop, bad cop here, but you know who else had a really good outing their previous time out?
Well, was it really good?
I mean, other than the walks.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's tough. I hope he goes out and pitches well. I don't need a win. I just need a solid outing against this Padres team. I mean, the Padres weren't, unbeatable last night.
No, they were not crushing the ball. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit both of his base hits very hard up the middle. But other than that, yeah, the quality of contact against Keller wasn't real good. It would have almost been effectively wild if he had walked, 4 guys instead of literally double that.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah, dude, that was bad. I said it earlier. The worst kind of baseball is baseball when there are just no strikes, when guys are walking all the time.
When just a poorly pitched baseball game is like nails on a chalkboard to me personally.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Which is why it's been so fun to be a Colorado Rockies fan for all 31 years of their existence.
Think about the one day when there's just an incredible pitching staff there, though.
We had that day, and they had great offensive players too. And then we traded one of them and kicked in $50 million for the privilege.
Well,
speaking of things I'll never get over.
Yeah, I was going to say we could revisit that if you'd like. We could just talk about the things the Rockies have done to hurt you personally.
Everything exist.
What was your take? I don't think we got to it. What was your take on Bryce Harper? I think we briefly mentioned it yesterday.
So, in case you missed it on Sunday, there was a bit of a kerfluffle in the Phillies-Rockies game. The Rockies reliever, Jake Bird, got really fired up. He struck out, got a strikeout in an inning. Rockies were going on to win the game. He must have turned toward the Phillies dugout. Bryce Harper came out really aggro about it and told in the Rockies dugout's direction, "You're a loser bleeping organization, every last one of you." Which, first of all, very uncool to say about your pal, Chris Bryant. I thought they were buds.
Yeah, I think they like get along, at least. They're both Las Vegas guys. Their wives are really close, I believe.
So rude to say that about your friend. Second of all, rude to say right in the face of Mike Moustakas, who's carrying big, hey man, I just work here energy the whole time.
Big time.
And has a ring. Third, some things are true, but you don't need to say them out loud. And that's one of those things. Keep it to yourself, Bryce. Only I get to say those things about the Rockies organization.
The funniest part of the whole clip is Dinger.
Yes.
Because Dinger is
acting horrified.
Standing on top of the dugout.
And when the dugout clears, he puts his hands up like, oh no!
What's happening? And he just freezes there.
No!
So funny.
It was really, really funny. No, Bryce gets a little aggro sometimes.
Yeah.
He gets a little aggro sometimes. I don't think he gets to say anything about an organization he has precisely as many rings as.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets to say that.
Look, Bryce Harper's an incredible baseball player. He really is.
Awesome player.
I was telling you earlier when we were playing, favorite athlete who's not on or never played for one of your favorite teams. When they came up around the same time, Mike Trout and Bryce Harper.
Right.
I was a Trout guy. I was not a Bryce Harper guy. Get his floppy hair out of here. Get the yelling. I don't like the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Give me pure, wholesome Mike Trout and his very normal life. Just loves the Weather Channel and Super Pretzel.
And the Eagles.
And loves Go Birds. Like, I want that guy. I'm going to be Bryce Harper, even though it is kind of unbelievable how he's been pretty good since coming back from the injury.
Yeah, he's been really good. He had a bad game on Sunday, though, and it clearly bothered him.
It's just, why get so personal?
Yeah, there was no need for
that.
What
did the Rockies do to you?
Yeah, here he's taking it. Yeah, beat you twice in 7 meetings this year, man. Relax.
Well, that was the irony of it, is they lost 4-0.
He'd hit a back-breaking home run in the Saturday game in the 9th inning. Like, come on, man. Chill. You don't need to say those things, even if they're true.
We're going to take one more time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we'll wrap up this edition of the show with a quick final word. of 580 Sports Talk, an important programming note for you. There is a chance you do not hear from us at all coming up tomorrow. The Royals have a 3:10 first pitch against the Padres in their series finale. So if that game lasts enough time, we're not going to be on the air at all. We might be on the air for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, who knows? We'll find out with whatever goes on in that game tomorrow afternoon, but we will not be on at our normal time, 3 o'clock. Coming up tomorrow. So with that, for at least a little while, Dan, let's get to a final word.
Final word from me today, man. Brad Keller, it's not good. It's not good right now. I don't know how it gets better anytime soon. Walking 8 guys per 9 in a 40-inning span is barely big league. It's not big league caliber from a starting pitcher. It has to get better. I don't know what makes it better. I don't know if it gets better starting with his next start. He talked to the Kansas City Star and seemed confident that he knew what adjustments to make. That article ran yesterday, the day he walked 8 guys in 3 2/3. So clearly the adjustments are not just that close for him. And I just hope he makes them for his sake, because there's no lonelier feeling in the world than standing on that mound and not being able to do what you're being paid to do.
Final word for me, making a lot of jokes about adding another Brown brother and the fact that no member of the Brown family who is on scholarship has ever not won a national championship at KU. But seriously, look, KU needed some depth. KU basketball had to add somebody in the post. They lost Ejiofor. He was going to be big man depth. They lost Uday. He was going to be big man depth. If you're going to add someone, might as well be someone who's played a ton of college basketball. 65 starts over the last 2 years. Yeah, that's plenty. By the way, he's older than Christian Brown. This is not a younger brother. This is an older brother.
That's so funny.
Isn't it?
Christian Brown's going to go into his second NBA season before Parker plays in a meaningful KU game.
COVID year, completely wild. But good bench depth for KU. He's probably going to play, 8-10 minutes. But hey, another Brown went well last time there was a member of the Brown family on the KU team. That's going to do it for 580 Sports Talk. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today and throughout this past year, one whole year of our new format on the Sports on 580 crew. We've had a blast on 580 Sports Talk. Can't wait for year 2 to begin. Again, we are likely off tomorrow due to Royals day game action. We'll be back on Thursday. Plenty to get to. Rick Peterson, Royals Talk, and so much more. That's coming up on Thursday. Don't forget to check out the podcast on our website. That's 580wibw.com. But until we talk to you again later in the week, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you when we talk to you right here on 580 Sports Talk.